You've never sweat this much.
All right, guys, it's this is our 10-year anniversary episode.
To the
We
day.
made it.
Is it to the day?
To the day.
Oh, wow.
So you set it up so that it was exactly to the day.
Way to
Yes,
go, Doug.
January 5th, 2015, to the day. Because today is January 5th, 2025.
Wow.
10 years.
Wow. And
Did you believe it was going to make 10 years?
That's the first question I had is, did you actually think we'd get here?
is that the question you had? So you actually prepared for us.
I did. I prepared some questions, yeah.
You prepared questions, clips. We wanted to do to go back, talk about it, the podcast, talk about experiences, mistakes, wins, the whole deal.
Yes.
And so that was one of the first questions you have.
It is, because when we started, 4 guys with no experience about podcasting come into a room, think you can talk real good, you know?
We thought we really should.
And did you actually think we'd, make it a year, let alone 10?
I do. I think that was part of the delusion that we all had and that we all shared. I think looking back,
Well, it wasn't delusion. It worked.
I mean, it did. Lucky. There's a little bit of luck involved in there. I do.
We were
I think
pretty
there's
confident
I think
out of
there's
the
a lot.
gates.
We were, oddly, because when you listen back to some of that, it's
What were you thinking, dude?
cringe.
Yeah.
We just let it out.
Well, so, so here's the thing. When you're an entrepreneur, and I think you can ask any entrepreneur this, when they start a business, I could ask you about a business that didn't work. When you started, did you think it would work? The answer is always going to be yes. I think you have that attitude when you're an entrepreneur, when you do something. Otherwise, how could you possibly...
Yeah, you believe in it.
How could you move forward if you don't believe it, right? However, I will say this, and I remember talking about it this way. I distinctly felt nervous about Mind Pump because something inside me said this is definitely gonna grow, and it made me nervous. It made me nervous because I've never done media. Yeah. And I said, oh my God, a lot of people are going to listen to this. It feels like that. It was a weird feeling. And I remember talking specifically to several people I'm close to and saying exactly that. So
I remembered something that we all shared, aside from the delusion, because I think we equally shared that. There's another thing that gave me confidence. And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of people in my 20 plus years in fitness. Probably can count on one hand how many people that I've met that I felt shared a similar type of work ethic as myself. And one of the things that, even though we were delusional about how good we weren't delusional about the work that was ahead of us in order for this thing to grow. And that was like something that I think everybody, like nobody was like, oh, we're so good, we're going to blow up because how good we were. It was like, we're going to figure this out. I don't care if we've got to do 1 million episodes to get good, we will. And everybody was bought in with that thought process of owning that we have no idea what we're doing, but there's a massive opportunity here and that we'll put in the reps to figure it out. And I felt like that was from day one. Yeah. I remember that about each guy, and I was like, okay, like we will figure this out.
So I think
that was our entire mantra. It was just reps.
Well, always. And this like reminds me of my child. I don't know about how far this harkens back for you guys, but I was never the stud athlete. I played sports and I was okay, was good, but I wasn't because I was gifted. It was because I was willing to do the things that the other kids weren't. I was willing to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and run before school. I was willing to go on weekends and sacrifice playing with my buddies and practicing dribbling with both hands. I would do whatever it took. And in practice, I was that guy that everybody hated because I ran 110%.
That's why I'm here. I'm terrible at this.
Right. And so,
but I proved that in athletics. I knew it would apply here.
and that's what I
don't
felt
play sports.
that
It's okay.
confidence about myself. And I felt
pick up your
that
slack.
from you guys with our approach here.
Agreed. Yeah. All right, let's go back to kind of how this started and maybe first impressions. I know we've told this story in other podcasts, but we were all doing our own thing. I owned a personal training studio, wellness studio. Doug was a client of mine. He actually came and hired me, was referred to me by a chiropractor. We became friends. He approached me several months in, and I mean, I remember exactly what you said. You said, you remind me of Tony Robbins. If you ever want to sell something, I have some internet marketing experience. And I had nothing to sell. It was maybe a month later where I came up with the idea of MAPS Anabolic. Doug and I created marketing material for it. It was the first time I was on camera. It felt natural for me, even though I wasn't great at it, but it did feel natural. And now, while this is happening, you and I, Adam, are in communication on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it had nothing. It was not fitness related whatsoever.
It was marijuana talk.
So at the time, I had someone close to me who was battling cancer, and I was looking at research on anything. They were terminal, so it was like, what alternative treatment could we do or whatever. And I saw these studies on cannabinoids in cancer, and I had known of you through mutual acquaintances and friends. Now this is where it gets weird. At least 5 different times over the last previous, I would say, 5 years, people would approach me and say, do you know Adam Schaefer? And I'd say, no. And they'd say, oh God, you guys should work together. Now, when that happens once, not a big deal. Second time, okay. By the 5th time, it was very weird. Why do people keep telling me I need to work with Adam Schaefer? What is it about? Why specifically us need to work together? It was really weird. But I'd remembered that, found you on Facebook, saw that you were in the cannabis industry because you had the dispensaries. So I reached out to you to ask you questions about strains of marijuana that I could give to, at the time it was my mother-in-law, she was the one battling cancer. Mm-hmm. So that's me and you were talking about that, nothing fitness
Which
related.
is also, when you think about the time, see, right now, that doesn't seem so crazy, but that you're talking,
This was
this is
12 years
before,
ago?
this is 12 years ago
Right.
that you're talking about.
Yeah, still legal.
It was very taboo to be openly discussing that,
If you're in fitness.
especially if you were in health and fitness.
Yeah.
It hadn't made its way for sure into that. It was barely getting mainstream to the average person of like, oh, like this cannabis stuff isn't all bad. There's some positive benefits to it. And so to talk to another person with a fitness background that was as knowledgeable as Sal was about marijuana and fitness was just, I mean, we connected right away.
Yeah. Now you said the same thing. You had said that people had kept coming up to you telling you need to work with me.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Larry, Jason, Todd. I mean, I had multiple people that had worked with you
Amber.
or were friends with you,
Yep.
that knew you and knew me and would tell me that all the
Weird.
time. And no one could ever tell me why.
That's right.
They would never. I'd be all, because
By the 4th time, I'm like, why?
yeah.
Oh,
No, you
I
just
don't
need
know.
a,
You
and
guys
they say, you just need a meet.
Yeah.
You just need a meet. You guys would, which is kind of funny when you think about how it all came together because we got together with no intention of what was going to happen just to meet.
So now what's happening now, I'm in communication with you. Doug and I make this MAPS, Anabolic was the program, and it was this marketing material. And then I'm talking to Adam. I'm like, you know what? I would love, in fact, I told Doug, I'm going to ask this guy's opinion on my marketing material, on our marketing material. And Doug's like, does he have experience? I said, well, yeah, he worked in the fitness industry a long time. Supposedly, from people I know, he knows this, he's good. So I messaged him on Facebook, hey, can I send you some stuff I put together? I'd love your opinion on it. And Adam's like, sure. So I send it over. You messaged me shortly after, get on the phone, and you're like, come over to my house, we should meet. And that's when I met with you and with Justin, and at the time it was Craig. Doug wasn't there.
Yeah.
But it was us 4. And that first conversation was, and I've said this on other podcasts, you can remember this when it happens because it's not often, it's rare. But there's those times when you sit down with someone, Maybe it's your spouse when you first met them. Maybe it's that best friend, whatever. We sat down the first time ever and we went off for 4 hours.
Yeah.
It was like this incredible conversation. We talked about the fitness industry, the state of it. We were joking and laughing. We're talking about, I remember specifically saying wellness and the fitness space need to meld together, which now is not that big of a deal, but back then it was. They were super separate. And then I said, Doug, my partner, has recording equipment. We should get together and do a podcast. And we chose podcast because it was long form. There was no barrier to enter. He had the equipment. Everybody agreed. And that was it. Look, the best cookware you'll find anywhere is from our place. No forever chemicals, lasts a long time. Go check them out. Click right here. That's how it started.
What I think is so interesting about that is that what made me do that was, or why I wanted to get together was that.
Yeah, let me ask you that. What made you say, hey, let's meet?
So Justin and I had already been working on something together. And Justin was really running all the technical side. He was managing the engineers, the software developers, and everything. And we were building an app. We're trying to gamify fitness. And we'd already been doing this for well over a year. And I had already started my Instagram and YouTube page because Justin was really managing the project. I was financing it, and I knew it was going to be my responsibility to who are we going to sell this app to?
Yeah.
Promote it.
Get an audience.
So I was already trying to figure out the social media game. I knew that was popping off. I'd seen that. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that, okay, I'm not well known enough to get enough people using our app. I need to build an audience. And so I was already interested in the online space. And so when you did that, I was just like, okay, digital marketing, online, okay, I'm interested in that. Let's just all get together with no intentions of what would manifest from that. Just that, listen, sounds like we're at similar crossroads in our career and that we're interested in a similar space. And then when you mentioned the podcast, I was familiar with the podcasting space and kind of where it was going, even though I didn't have any clue on what it would take to start up. And it was you and Doug that really made me realize, oh my God, this is much easier. And it was like, oh, this makes sense. If we can build an audience on a podcast, then Justin and I have a place to sell our app.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's really you nailed the meaning behind it. Is we were all seniors in our career. We were just where do I go from here? Because I'm in, it's on autopilot. I've done every direction you can go. Have tapped out on the high end training market, had a pretty, good business in terms of flexibility. And I'm just looking for something that's going to give me drive and purpose, and, reconnected with Adam, and he was in his phase where he was going through the medical marijuana industry and trying to figure that out. And we were just we were still really passionate about fitness. And it was what else can we do? And then it was you're doing something adjacent right at that same time. Yeah. And so I think that really mattered. Was the timing with that.
Now, first impressions. So, So Adam, right out the gates, was easy for me to connect with because we're similar in our personalities and whatever. But I remember meeting him and I was like, damn, this dude's jacked. He's so good looking. This guy looks like Clark Kent. What is happening?
And then I got all the oh, you're on the perma bulk?
Yeah. No, you were quiet.
Constantly, bro.
No, when we met, you were quiet and I could feel you silently judging me. I could feel when we were having that meeting, not in a bad way, but I could tell that okay, you're just not all in. You're kind of, and to find out you did. You thought you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I read everybody for a while. It takes a minute, but I mean, I liked what I saw, and I liked your, what you had to say. It wasn't about that. It was really just your character. I take a while to move in that direction, especially if I'm well, we're going to be working with this person potentially and all this. And I'm a little nervous to have two Adams, I was a little bit nervous about that.
What was wild was that we were willing to kind of go into this business idea together with no business plan or no even agreement on.
There was no legal agreement.
Yeah, no.
It was a handshake.
And originally the thought really was.
Don't ever do that, everybody.
No, I mean,
terrible.
Yeah, the original thought was Justin and I had our own business. You guys had your own business. We would collectively use the podcast.
That's right.
And then we would both make money in different directions. So there's no we're going to merge and Maps is going to become ours and the app is going to become you. It was Justin and I have this app. We need an audience. You guys have Maps Anabolic. You've already tried to go out online with Doug, and you guys are finding you're getting a little bit of traffic, but not much.
Nothing.
You guys need a bigger audience. And so it was like, okay, this is great. We both equally need each other to grow an audience, to sell whatever product or thing that we had in mind, but no conversation around like, oh, how are we gonna do a split and who's gonna run what? Like none of that was just like, okay, let's go. Let's go test this out, which is what I loved about all of our personalities. And this is why part of why it worked was because nobody was like, oh, well, what about this? It was just like, yeah, we all agreed on the idea.
Early on, there was some of that, but it wasn't us. Remember, we started the show. A lot of people don't know this, but we started the podcast with a fourth host, Craig Capurso, who's friends with Adam, and he had a large social media following, or the largest, I should say, out of all of us. Definitely larger than mine. I didn't have one. And we started, there it is right there. That's the first episode. What a meat, bro.
Oh my God, look at us.
Look at Adam. What a meathead right there. I look like my kid. I look like that's my son up there right now. But we
look like a nerd.
We recorded this. There was still great chemistry, but I remember Craig afterwards was like, okay, you talked most of the time, so next time you talk a little more. He was trying to manage the show. Yeah. And all of us were like, nah, let's just go. Yeah. Like that doesn't make any sense. No, not at all. But we recorded. How many episodes did we record with Craig?
I
15,
don't recall.
10?
10, maybe 10 to 15.
At least 10 to 15. At least we did that. You know, remember too that at that time, Craig had a brand. Craig had a name. Craig had been on covers of magazines. He was the most popular at all of us on social media. And he was so concerned about himself and who he was. I mean, that's part of why he didn't join us. Yeah. Was because
he had something to lose, he felt like.
That's right. He got a phone call from it was either Cellucor or Bodybuilding.com. So one of the higher ups had heard some of the episodes because he sent them over to listen to them, to hear what they had to say. And he was being sponsored by them at the time. That was his main source of income. And they were like, like it, but I don't think it's going to work for our brand. And so he was concerned that he would get dropped as a sponsor and lose that income. And he wasn't willing to risk that. And it really ended up working out because stylistically, it would have never worked. It would have never worked with, one of the other things that makes this work for 10 years is that nobody ever cared about being the man.
No.
And he cared so much about that eventually that would have rubbed one of us the wrong way. Yeah. For sure would have gotten into a fight with Sal or I.
Oh, for sure with you, 100%. Yeah, we did and we've brought this up before. There was one moment for me when I felt so solidified in this, and that's when we did 10 or 15 episodes, edited, recorded. By the way, that took us a while to do because we all had jobs. We weren't making money. So we would meet once or twice a week and record for hours. Then Doug was the only person editing the whole thing. He'd have to listen to it. So you're talking about hours of work with these episodes that we're going to launch. We're ready to launch them. We're all psyched and excited. Craig sends us a text and says, guys, I can't do it. Yeah. I got to pull out.
Yep.
And I remembered, and I've said this so many times because it's such a vivid memory. I saw the text and I immediately, in my mind, went, okay, I need to motivate these guys to keep going, to start over. So I need to get on the phone and I'm gonna hype these guys up. We're gonna keep going. And we got on a call and I couldn't even open my mouth. Adam was the first one to say, we're gonna keep going. Justin's like, let's do it. I didn't have to say nothing. And I was like, oh my God, everybody's the same. And I felt so even more excited. I got more excited.
I imagine we all probably felt the same thing about Craig. That's why. I think we all recognized that he would have given us a quicker catapult.
Yeah.
Because he already had an audience.
Yeah, right.
And so
that was the draw for sure.
And so that was appealing to us, right? Like, oh, wow, here's a guy who's knowledgeable about fitness, has the look. He's already got a name for himself. This will help us get our first 1,000 listeners or whatever. But I think all of us in our gut probably knew he didn't match well with all of us. And so when that happened, I think it just felt serendipitous. It was the first bit of serendipity into the business, right?
A lot of that.
We did 11 episodes we recorded with him, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a substantial change, to go from that. We were just about to launch.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, wow, okay, I guess we're going to do this over. But yeah, I was like, again, weirdly confident that it was going to be even better.
Yeah. And we got back on the mics. Those first 10 or 11 or whatever with him served as warm-ups. They served as extra, as practice. Then we start recording it that's at your house, Doug. That's when we started recording at your house.
Yes.
I remember that table. You put the blanket over it.
Hardwood floors, by the way. Horrible acoustics. I put moving blankets up everywhere, trying to make it sound good, but it didn't.
And
I remember
Doug's ears were bleeding listening to it.
I remember the chemistry. It was
It
really
was,
good.
but I remember being so nervous. I remember being so nervous podcasting. It was, and this is why I always tell people that make comments like, "Oh, you should have the wives on," or "Oh, I could come on." And it's just like you just think that you're going to get on these things, and I can't tell you how many people get in the studio.
Oh man!
And we flip these lights on, and they freeze up and start
Deer in the
sweating.
headlights.
Yeah. So, and I know what that feels like because I remember the very first time that we did this. You can't help but be like, oh my God. Even when only hundreds of people are listening, you're still thinking tens of thousands could potentially listen to this.
you know
Now we have cameras and everything on top of that.
So what was interesting for me was, and it's still like this, for whatever reason, the camera makes me feel not anxious whatsoever. But I would have so much anxiety on the way home and in bed. Because I'd remember what we said. I remember the conversations we had.
You're going
and I'm
over
like,
it.
oh my God, people are
I
going to
did
hear
the
that.
same
Oh my
thing.
God, people are going to, and I would work myself up into a frenzy. I'd go to sleep, wake up the next day. I think I'm okay. Whenever we turned the mics and the camera, I felt very comfortable right out the gates, but afterwards was always a nightmare for me.
Well, you were also at the same time. I don't think I or we're aware of it yet, but you were also hearing it from your wife at the same time, right?
Yeah.
That she's giving you that extra grief of like, you can't say this.
It was the last straw. That was the last straw of the camel's back.
Right. So you got that pressure, that feeling, and then you're getting it also from home, like being told, like, you can't be talking about this or being that way, and then pulled out. Which to me, that was a big moment when you started to go through that, and it was like she basically gave you it's mind pump or fix us type of deal, and you chose I'm doing this mind pump thing.
Well, I mean, there's so much more behind it, and I don't like to go into detail because I don't want to air out her or any of that stuff, But it was the last straw, and it wasn't so much a pick me or mind pump, although it was in some ways positioned that way. We were there. I mean, it was already like this is not happening.
Yeah, you
anymore.
felt that way before.
100%.
Yeah, it was 100%. The camel.
But that was the last straw for sure. There was one picture in particular. We took a picture, and it was. I mean, we were obnoxious. Like we were
wild in the beginning for sure.
There was
we also
barred.
Yeah, we also thought that was a strategy.
Yeah,
it was a strategy.
It was a shock and awe approach.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought if we can just get the attention, however, by any means possible, then if we could just get people to listen, then they'll hear the authenticity behind our message and the information.
We did something, and I remember I'm at home and I hear screaming, and she comes out of the bedroom. I can't believe you said that, and it was like this huge blow up. I don't remember what it was, because we said a lot of stuff in those early episodes, but it was it was a big deal.
I think people should know some of the titles of our episodes. Those early ones, Squirrels and Sparkly Taints.
That's a title of an episode.
The Sticky Icky. If we were gay, Vajazzled,
of course,
and Crazy Chicks for Me.
Oh my God, dude!
Wow.
So this. Hold on, everybody, listen. We were a fitness podcast.
Yeah, we were fitness.
What were we doing, dude?
What were we doing?
What were we?
No idea.
I know.
Now, Doug, what's going through your head at this point?
Yeah, you got to wonder because Doug, that's not like you must have been. You're like the master. Like you're like Splinter. How did you not? Did you just think I'm going to be patient?
I bit my tongue a lot. Yeah. So I figured it was just some young, excitement that you guys had because you're like 15 years younger than me. But you guys we're
in our 30s.
You're
yeah.
I could see that you were probably a little bit nervous. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're using some alcohol and maybe some other substances to get through the episodes.
Yeah,
a lot of profanity, a lot of bathroom humor. Mm-hmm. But I also felt that there was this chemistry that I could work with. And I just saw that if we could let it mature a bit, that it could turn into something great. So
I think what I don't know, this is all hindsight, but I think the fitness stuff was so genuine and real because that's what we'd been doing for so long that's what got, really grabbed people. I remember there's one memory I have distinctly of those early days. We had just launched the podcast. How many episodes did we launch with? 10? 5?
I think maybe 5 initially,
right.
3 to 5.
So we just launched it. I'm at the studio training a client, and I remember who I was training.
This is when I'm blowing you up.
Yes, and I remember distinctly. I'm training one of my female clients. We're working out, and my phone is buzzing, and I look at it, and it's Adam calling me, and so I skip to voicemail, put my phone away. Bzz, bzz. I look at it again. It's him again. Skip the voicemail. Third time he calls me. I'm like, what is going on? So I said, hey, can you pardon me for a second? I got to take this call. I go outside and I answer. I'm like, what's up, dude? And he goes, go to iTunes right now. I said, okay. And I go to iTunes. He goes, go to New and Notable. And we're there. We're in New and Notable. This was within the first week of launching the podcast. And I was like, what does that mean? We're on a chart? Like we're on the front page of
So was
iTunes?
it when we were What's Hot? Was that when we launched our CrossFit episode?
New and Notable was the chart, right?
Yeah, new and noteworthy.
And the
New and
first,
Noteworthy.
Yep.
you know, this was something that, thank God that Doug,
I think it was.
this is
I think it
another
was when we
part
got
of
hot.
why Doug was so important to the piece of this puzzle, because he would do enough homework and research to know things like, hey, we want to have at least 5 episodes backloaded and we want to launch 3 of them on the same day so people have multiple to listen to. This is the cadence. In the first 8 weeks, we're competing only against people that are in their first 8 weeks. That gives us the opportunity to be on New and Noteworthy. And so he knew that. I remember he knew that about that. And so that was the strategy, was like put out these episodes early on. In fact, probably the I think it was the female fitness myths was probably one of the first ones that would really.
CrossFit was the first one, right? Why we don't CrossFit?
No, I think the female myths was even
The
before.
female myths was one of the first ones for sure.
There were a couple that took off.
Yeah.
And those two were the ones I think that
Those were
put
the
us-
2 main ones I remember from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's important to be clear that took off was not
Yeah.
like millions of downloads. It was like thousands.
No, we were still
Well, no, nobody knew a
peanuts.
podcast was. I used to tell people I have a podcast, and people would say, "What's a podcast?" That's what it was like 10 years ago.
Which, by the way, I think
This is a terrible name for it too.
I know.
I've never liked it.
I think
Well,
that
it's like a radio show.
Yeah.
That's what
I
used to
think
say.
that's I think looking back, at least I think this. I don't know if you guys agree or not. I don't know if we make it today. I think that time. First of all, timing in business is the number one.
Yeah.
Thing,
You mean
right?
with what we sounded like when we first
Yes.
started? No.
I don't think we would ever have got off the
I
ground
don't think
enough to keep us going for long enough to become number one in this climate today. I think it was so new that most people didn't even know what a podcast was, that gave us time
And the
to
fitness
suck.
space had nothing.
That's right. There was nothing. We weren't competing really with anything.
No.
And so it gave us time to suck and get better. That right when people started to realize what a podcast was and it became mainstream, everybody knew what a podcast was. We'd already established ourselves as not sucking horrible anymore, and we
Right.
just kind of sucked. And so that allowed us to get
Suck
Slight
decreased.
suck.
Yeah, I mean, I really think. Don't you think so, Doug? Do you think? I don't think we make it right now.
Yeah, it'd be rough for sure. It's a very saturated market, and there's a lot of really good podcasts out there.
Yeah.
Very slick production. I mean, we're again using moving blankets and hardwood floors, so it
And
sounds
we
like a
sounded
bathroom.
way better than everybody in fitness. Fitness was a terrible category back then.
Well, I remember
People were
Layne
in their-
Norton.
yes.
He had
in the
really
bathroom.
good information, but it sounded like he was recording in his bathroom.
it's
for
echo.
sure.
Or in a live gym. I remember listening to some podcasts and it's like you hear all this like cross talk in the back. I'm like, what are they doing? Can't you just get an isolated room?
That's why we were so lucky, right? We entered it into a space when it was so new that we were. It was okay that we were rough around the edges. We didn't know what we were doing. It gave us time to get good. This is why, too, I think in business, why it's so important to take action. And if you plan and back and forth on, I should this and that, and you're waiting, and it's just like, man, time is so important. Timing is so important in business that getting started was the most important thing, and then
Of course.
being open to repping as much as we did to get all that out. That so when people finally did find us, we had started to refine our skills.
Totally.
a
So
little
that
bit.
first year, then we shortly after we got in, we rented a studio, and
Yeah.
we would
What was the
meet
time
there-
frame on that?
This
4 months in. We
So
rented
4
a
months.
studio. Yeah,
And we would
350 square foot.
It was like
room.
Monday nights, right? It was Monday
nights.
nights.
Now that's crazy. We did that before we were monetizing. Then
That's right.
Yes.
so
We all
all-
put $1,000 in
we all
to a
put
bank
a-
account.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Formed a company called Mind Pump Media
That's the first time we signed anything.
Yeah.
and signed a lease.
That's it. And we pay it. So, and Monday nights we would show up after work, and we would record till 11, o'clock or something like that. We would do like 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, and our sound quality went up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we took a staple gun and put foam all over the walls.
I'd say it went up quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit,
That was a
actually.
big
Yeah.
leap that first, because I mean, as far as quality of sound, because we had those big cushion couches and then we had the foam all over the place. But at that time, we're not even thinking visual at all. In fact, we think that that's silly that anybody would want to watch people talk.
And the episode ideas were literally
shock and awe.
out of thin air.
Shock and awe.
What it's going to be, what we feel like.
Yeah.
In fact, we had no structure. We used to just turn the mics on.
Story based.
Do you guys remember that? Doug would just turn the mics on.
Do you remember you used to ask Doug like time checks?
Oh yeah.
Doug, how much time we got, or what we had time?
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the episode.
Oh my God, that's right. We used to open every episode with some kind of like cheap joke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like
sexual innuendos in the title.
We put the P.
Yeah, no,
mind pump. I don't know. Like we just come up with something.
We put the dick in dictation.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Doug.
Oh man.
It's the stuff I shook
We're
my
not like
head
this
about.
anymore. and there was a lot of episodes where we drank or smoked weed, and we thought it made us better.
Yeah.
It made us so much worse.
I mean, all it did was probably calmed a little bit of the nerves, but it didn't make us better by any means. And I think we realized when we started having sober episodes, and we realized that was a lot better.
Yeah.
You know, so we probably need to stick to being sober.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah.
But it took a while to get past
Oh,
that.
I was like singing before episodes, like doing dumb shit. Like
Now,
that.
what made you guys decide? Because we were going. What made you decide that you wanted MAPS Anabolic to be our thing that we're going to put forward? Hey, sorry to interrupt. Look, I have a free guide that teaches you how to lose fat in 3 steps, just 3 steps that will burn the most amount of body fat and help keep it off. This guide is totally free. We're giving it to everybody right now. If you want it, click on the link at the top of the description below. All right, back to the show.
We didn't. You offered it.
Yeah.
We had guides. Justin and I had already written guides.
Yeah.
We had the app that we wanted to do. And we were early on, we actually divided that still.
Yep.
That's right.
So at the very beginning, you guys had some online sales that you did.
Yeah, we were just doing our own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
think you
never-
offered that. It was just like, oh well, yeah, cool.
I think after the new and noteworthy and the getting the studio, we realized that the podcast was going to be bigger than anything else that we had done.
Yeah.
And I think at that moment, we just agreed like, who cares that you went and built that? Who cares we built this?
Yeah.
Let's just put it all in the pot together since no one's rich. You know, no one's making any money really off this stuff. Let's just agree to do all of it because this is going to be the baby. And I think we all agreed that early. And nobody, there was no signed anything. There was just like trust and like we agreed that this thing that we were creating had, I mean, that to me, the new and noteworthy thing when I called you that day was the all I had to see was like, okay, we proved that in 8 weeks that we're better than anybody else that started the last 8 weeks or better than most everybody else that had started 8 weeks. That's enough for belief that we can figure this out. Still, do I not think that we're great or anything like that, but it's like, okay, we are figuring this out. And now let's go invest in this. Let's just put it all. Justin and I haven't sold an app yet. We haven't done anything. Let's just put it all in one pot and let's go do
Now
this
that
thing.
first year,
Solidified it.
did we haven't? I mean, because a lot of people don't know this, and maybe we don't have to go too much detail. But there tends to be, we tend to thrive off this. I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. We like to have an enemy. Like we like to have somebody that we target. Not to beat them up or anything, but to like, we're going to go after them. We're going to beat them, right? It just gets us
I feel like this is a really old mentality. I was talking to someone about this the other day because that's exactly what we did in practice in football. We would make some poor kid wear the jersey of their best player, and we would destroy him all week long.
Well,
and it was just like a focus.
Have you ever heard Tom Brady talk about this?
No.
Yeah, so Tom Brady talks about this before he goes into, like, before every game. He would create a scenario with an opposing player on their team, like, and even if he had to make believe, like make it up. Michael Jordan's famous for this also.
Oh yeah.
So Michael Jordan would create
He's crazy about
storylines
that, yeah.
about a player that he's playing against that weren't even true.
Wow.
But he would tell himself
What the fuck is that?
to believe it, so he had this extra edge against.
So
it.
was it Barbell Shrugged for us early days? Was
No.
that no?
They weren't first. That didn't come till later.
That was later.
Yeah,
that
there was like
3 years
it
later.
was Dr. Integrity and people like that.
Oh,
Shreds.
yeah.
The
Shreds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there it is right there.
I made fun of them a lot.
Yeah,
in
Shreds
early
was this
days.
company that sold supplements through social media, and they kind of represented everything we hated about the fitness industry. And so we went after them.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say we were
was
part
fun.
of them going out of business.
Of course we were. Nobody was doing that back then. In fact, a lot of people were jockeying the brand back then.
Oh yeah.
Because they were on a rocket ship as far as growth. I mean, and they were acquiring, athletes every week. A new one was joining their
They'd
team.
come into gyms
They
with
had
entourage.
They had the biggest booths at the Olympia. I mean, they were on a rocket ship. Nobody was talking bad about them, and we were pointing out the way they were making money and how shitty their supplements were, and poking fun at it early on. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to what you said. I think we just tend to do is I think we find, back then it was okay because we were the little guy punching up.
Yeah.
Where I remember when that had to change too. There became a time where I remember getting feedback from people in the audience.
Like we're bullying.
Yeah, like we were bullying. And I went, oh, wow. Like we're no longer the little guy punching up anymore, when it was totally okay, right? It was okay when these four dudes that nobody knows about is talking trash about this big, multi-million-dollar company.
Well, do you guys remember we had a phone call and we talked about how we're going to name what we're after and what we're against. We're going to call it the fitness industry. And we're going to talk about what they do, what they represent, and why we want to counter it. And we did that just very strategically.
Yeah.
To paint a picture. Yeah. Really is what.
Oh yeah, Mind Pump Mafia.
Mind Pump Mafia.
That was that is still to this day one of the highest selling T-shirts that we ever did. So mind you, our audience is tiny at this time.
And they still bought most.
But more shirts were purchased from that. That it just shows you how the movement behind what we were doing at that time, how much more powerful it was. Our size is, I mean, we're 100x the size that we were back then. And that still sold more T-shirts. Because it was, I mean, if there was anything I learned doing the apparel for this long, it was like design matters very little. The meaning
has
behind,
to have a movement behind it.
The movement and the meaning behind whatever the thing is matters so much more.
What if we brought back? We should bring it back retro. See what happens.
I kind of like that image with you on there.
Bro, that's a great.
Shirt. That'd be great.
That is a great Photoshop job. That is so.
It is. Yeah. Whoever did that nailed it.
Yeah. Look at all that hair I had. Back then. What happened? This kid just,
oh no,
do you remember the videos too
aged.
of me getting ready to do a pre-workout?
Yeah,
and then pouring it, and then pouring in the sink.
Yeah.
We did a whole get rid of supplement campaign.
Yeah, do you remember people were tagging us and throwing away all their supplements and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So funny.
Oh, I know. Oh, what is
here's
this?
this.
Oh yeah, that's the one. That's the campaign there.
This is all part of it.
You just chopped.
What? I don't even remember doing this.
I don't.
That's so great. That was brilliant.
I don't remember you doing that right there. That's so good. Yeah,
like a psychopath.
You
dude.
are a psychopath. Now,
I was in my real woods kind of phase.
Now, when did we create? The first program we created together was Performance.
Together. But we didn't even start selling maps in a bulk till way later in the story.
This is a year later.
Yeah,
that's a year into.
Yeah.
Mind Pump. We had a following.
My teeth got so much better.
I know. we started making some money just to buy some.
I'm like, I'm wearing all the money right here, dude.
Justin bought some teeth and Sal bought some muscles.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. You guys have changed.
I sold mine.
You ran.
You shaved all your hair.
I remember how much that used to bother me? It used to bother me so much that
you were the bodybuilder?
Yes, that I was the bodybuilder guy. Because I never thought of that.
We
did not like that.
We would make you tell the single guy stories. You're like, I'm not even single.
Oh, God, that used to drive Katrina crazy, bro.
I can't imagine. She's a good woman for sticking
the amount
by
of conversations I'd have to have when I come home. What an amazing woman to stick by my side.
Oh, bro.
She's
remember
a
that story
champion
you told the garage opener story?
Well, I remember. I mean, you guys are.
You were so.
You guys are years into marriage and kids and things like that, and I'm the guy who's.
You're like.
Yeah, that's why we're like, we can't talk about this.
Yeah, and I remember convincing Katrina that, like, hey, someone's got to be the single bachelor guy. Thank God she's
totally
so
for
down
the
and ride or die. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, guy.
Let him
whatever.
He'll outgrow it. I guess.
He'll outgrow it.
Oh, so, I'd come home and she like, did you really have to say it like that? Like, you sound like such a douche. And I'd be like, oh, God.
And we would egg you on.
It was funny, though. Yeah,
we would egg you on the whole time.
You would. I mean, that's how it went that way for so long, was because you guys were constantly egging me on, and I thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Are these episodes, the old ones, like these old ones, are they even available?
They are.
Really?
People are willing to dig. They can find them.
Every once in a while, you see somebody in the forum will pull one up, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I've listened to this."
I would say we were like that, where it was just. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you're a new listener, and when I say new, I mean the last few years, and you go back and listen to some of those old episodes, you'll be shocked.
Yeah.
I would say that didn't stop until about episode 300 or 400 at least.
Oh, you know what? No, that went on until 1,000, bro.
Really?
Oh, where people would go back and listen to the whole thing?
No, what I mean is where you listen to it and it's like
This
like
is
those
still
original episodes.
This
were-
is still. It's not as often that I hear this anymore. But I want to say into the thousands, over 1,000, you would hear people that found from a referral. There was always a referral. Oh, someone told me, and people would tell people, go start at the beginning. And so we would get people. They'd be like, oh, I'm only on episode 250 right now, and they were working their way back.
No, but what I mean is that style that we had, that raw, it was crazy, off the wall. I mean, that didn't start to taper down until probably what, 300-400? Would you say?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you're
I'd have to go back.
It started getting more professional.
I think once we
Yes,
start
little by
selling
little.
things,
little by little.
right? Like that's really where it started to matter. It's like, oh well, we gotta actually move some products.
Yeah, no, and it's not just that. It's just I think we were more comfortable.
Yeah,
You
that
know, I
too.
think when you're nervous, you just go off.
I think we argued.
It was a
about-
game of chicken
We
half the
argued.
time.
We
Both.
argued about this because I think we thought it was a good strategy. There's a lot of things that we did in this business that we thought was a good idea. Here's one. How about this? You guys remember when we decided to start the YouTube channel and we had already had some success with the podcast and we thought it would be a smart idea to mirror
act like the podcast.
Yeah, to act like the podcast on YouTube, which had been one of the dumbest ideas we ever had, but we did that for like a year.
You know,
when we all three
Bro, it was
coached the
dumb.
same
Yeah.
thing.
It was
no,
dumb.
it was, yes, it is dumb. But to think, but we had only one thing to pull from.
I
which is
know,
the
but
podcast.
anybody who ever teaches about social media now would tell you like each
you
platform is what are you doing? Like that's
It's
not
a
how
different medium completely.
Yeah.
So.
had-
the way people use YouTube is they search to learn something. Okay, every one of you in the last week has YouTube something, and it was to learn a recipe, look for a song, whatever. And you do not want to hear.
It's utility. It's like get me to where I want to go.
It's all utility.
Yeah.
You're not just like wanting to hear three guys talk about, especially when the title says like how to skull crush or how to do
And
like
we're making jokes.
Yeah, and we're talking about personal stuff. Like that was such a terrible
And
idea.
we recorded those they were fun, but they were definitely, I'd say,
Remember we used to have Doug swoop in with the camera? Like each time it was like, no. Start
Running
up,
from there.
Start up high and then come swoop
They
in.
love the steady cam.
Yes.
With his
Doug- Doug was like
Unabomber
this.
outfit on.
My bomber vest
Yeah, his
on.
bomber vest
headphones.
on.
because you had all the equipment on you.
The ideas that we had.
So we launched Maps Anabolic a year in. That first month, launched great. I remember we had so much
And
pent up
then-
demand.
Not that great.
Well, because then we had to come back and I did the transformation.
Yes.
Well, considering we weren't making any money that
was
first
good,
year,
bro.
Well,
it
yeah, if you
anything
go-
was
If you
great.
compare to $0, we did great. But we didn't even make enough money that we would divide the money up.
no. But
I mean, it was like cool. Put it in the bank. We actually have we can pay for rent now for the
but
rest
by
of the
the
year.
time it was a second or third, because then Justin did his transformation, we did a decent amount. We did a pretty good amount.
I remember it was a while. Okay, it was a good year past the first time we saw it before we could even say this.
Well, when did
for 30 days?
Yeah.
I remember this was a big milestone, and I remember coming into work being like,
Yeah.
"We did it. We did 30 days in a row of at least one program being sold."
once,
That was a big
that day.
milestone, and it took a year after monetization.
when did we
before that
all
even
go
happened.
full time? Was it a year and a half?
Probably about a year
and a
in.
half.
Yeah.
it was a
No,
year and a half. So we were paying
no,
ourselves.
a year after monetization.
Oh, really?
So,
That
oh
long?
yes.
Okay.
So for 2 years we were working.
We were already.
Oh my God.
We were already.
Wow.
We were already dividing up. I want to say about $3,000 to $5,000 a month each. Okay, we were paying ourselves $3,000 to $5,000 a month before you guys would even leave your jobs. I remember I wanted us to go before that.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted us to go when we didn't even have enough to live. I was like, we'll figure it out.
The guy with no kids.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that was that's how you guys threw it back in my face all the time. Like, okay, yeah, the guy with no kid, mortgage, or anything like that. Of course you would. You know what I'm saying?
Got your weed cat.
Yeah.
You're all-
Yeah.
We're all trading clients.
Yeah. You're like, sure you will. But I mean, I knew this about us. I knew that, and trust me, and I think you guys would agree.
Oh my God.
Oh,
The
Justin
notorious
loves- Justin
before
loves
and
it.
after picture.
My
from
wife
Justin.
hates that picture so much.
God, you get lean right there, bro.
Yeah.
Look at that handsome guy right there.
I mean, you guys like pinching my nipples.
I don't know why we did that. Why did we
don't
pitch
know.
this?
We just did weird stuff.
Kind of makes sense though. I mean, might as well.
Part of the brand back then.
Really shame me.
So we were. I was training client. I had sold my studio, but I was still training clients. I was still training clients.
Yeah.
And then I finally cut it off. And so you're saying it was 2 years in?
Yeah, remember I when I finally left Orange Theory was when we were gone because I was waiting for you guys to go before I went all the way. in.
When did we launch? When did we launch Performance? Because that was our first big, first real launch.
I think we created
year
it in
after?
January of 2016.
So the following year,
I think it was like a month or two after that.
month or two
Yeah.
after. Where did we create Performance?
That was in Reno.
We went to the hotel.
Hotel, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's right.
I feel like that was the same when we did Prime too.
It is.
Exactly,
It is.
same place.
We used that a few times.
That's
Adam
a
had a
magical
hookup there.
spot. We should
That's when
have
I was
kept going
gambling.
there.
That was when I was gambling a lot up the Layne.
Yeah. So you had a
They stopped
hookup
giving
for
you
us.
the free comp.
Yeah, I had the free suite up there from.
So we
gambling.
created performance, launched that. Aesthetic was a big launch. I remember that. That for us was big because it was a lot of pent up demand.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we were kind of leading up to it. And you
It was also following my journey of bodybuilding too at that time.
That's absolutely right. And then it was shortly after that we went full time. That's
Prime.
That's Prime, yes.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Prime was that was a hard thing to
We
create.
had to draw and then try and stick it on the
I still
window.
to this day, I'm still most proud about that program.
It's one of my favorite memories.
The trainers that listen to our show that don't have Prime, I get fired up every time because it's to me, like if I was a trainer, that would be the most awesome thing to have. Even I don't care if I worked at 24 Hour Fitness, if I'm private, to have an assessment tool like that we have created with not only like the compass test of like how you assess them, but then direction to give them with the to me, it was the one of the most brilliant things we did because of how detailed, how good it was, but also simplifying it to where it wasn't
That
over
was the hard
delivery.
part.
Yeah, because
the delivery was simple.
because there's great assessments out there like FMS and things like that.
Yeah, but you have to be a trainer. You have to
that
be
was
a
always
coach.
my sticking point because I was very passionate about assessments, but it was like, and not a lot of trainers would use it because it was like you do your assessment and then that was it. It's done.
Yeah.
And like, so how can you simplify all of this so we could just cover with a broad stroke and like somebody could actually do it at their house?
And you don't have to be a trainer. That's the other part of it. Like how do you have the average person assess themselves? Like, good luck.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
And then
for us.
giving them generic enough yet specific enough movements to help them
That's
and
right.
move it in the right. That's why I think it was so special. It was
right.
like I don't know, we threaded the needle in a situation like that. It's like it's not overcomplicated, but it's incredibly valuable.
It's
for
very
anybody.
useful. Yeah.
Now, what would you guys say were some of our first notable interviews? Because we did some early interviews in that little studio, like
Well, let's talk about the first one that we thought was going to be notable.
Ben Zorn.
I'll never
love the
forget.
guy,
Okay,
but
here's a funny story. Okay, so Sal is always the best too because when Sal gets riled up about something or he's on head like he's gonna sell everybody on his idea, right? Like that he's right or about it. And I remember when he thought that CBS was shutting us down because there was like an
Because
upload.
Ben Zorn, he was a
There was
bachelor.
helicopters outside.
No, not
listening.
that far. He was on The Bachelor,
Yes.
and he was gonna like let us in on all the behind the scenes.
Yes.
Like, is it really? Is it planned? Is it
Yes.
really reality?
And we thought he was like, at that time he had like 300,000 followers,
Which was
which is huge.
Yeah.
And more than
That's
any
like
of
a
our
million
friends.
now.
Yeah. And so that was huge how many followers he had. And we thought, holy shit.
this episode's gonna take us.
yeah. Like we had 300,000
How did we
people.
get him on the show? You knew him.
Yeah,
somehow.
I know him. I met him in the gym a long time ago. And we became
You guys
friends.
are
We had a
part of the
mutual-
Handsome Guy Club.
Yes, the handsome guy.
He's like, hey, handsome guy over there.
Yeah.
Hey, come here.
You want to have lunch?
We should do something together.
Dude, we should have our own handshake or something.
We had him on the show. It did nothing.
It did nothing.
Zero.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. Not even like not an extra download. It was zero.
Yeah. Remember when I paid JoJo Baby?
Well, you know what maybe deterred it was the picture that we took as a group with Ben. You remember that where I was like total Jabba the Hutt because I was in the foreground too much.
No,
It was like,
shut up.
I don't remember.
you don't remember that?
No,
Oh,
I
dude,
don't
it
remember
was
that picture.
bad.
Well, you know Justin. You know that face he makes when he gets him. It doesn't.
Yeah,
get his
hey, bro, you've been sucking at photos since day one. Dog.
I know. That was the ultimate
We
worst.
just took
goes
photos.
like
We just took
dude.
photos like a week ago. Justin still finds a way to
I
look like
can't
he's taking a
fucking-
shit every time we take a photo, dude.
He goes, like, all right, ready?
Somebody needs to like just
As
candidly
soon as they pull the
catch me.
camera out, he goes like this. Ooh.
Hey, next time I'm gonna say, hey, try and look terrible. See what you can see what happens. I have a feeling it might work out.
Maybe some kind of reverse psychology.
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna start telling you, like, pretend like you're taking a shit, Justin. See how that photo comes up. Maybe it'll turn out good.
So when did you? Okay, so you brought up JoJo Baby. So she was.
JoJo.
some
Look her up.
Insta-
How many followers she has now?
She's like some Instagram butt model or something.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Adam knew her somehow.
She's like some hot Filipino chick.
and you paid her to do a post showing it.
I think we paid her $1,000.
Yeah.
I think $1,000.
No, 500.
800 or 1,000,
Yeah,
something like that.
To put Mind Pump in the background.
So I came up with this idea that she would be.
She wasn't like a fitness chick or anything.
No, she was just like an ass model, right?
Just
So and
straight,
she did all these photos, right? So I'm
ass
like,
model.
I had her on the laying on the bed on the iPad, right, from behind, so you see her ass, and she's like listening to the podcast, and that was gonna be like the ad, and
it did
nothing
at all. It might have hurt us,
not
in
one
fact.
did, not one
Probably
download,
prevented
not
us from
one
it.
person ever said, "Hey, I found your show because
And
of
then I
this."
followed that up with
How many
my
followers does
porn
she have?
ad.
Oh,
I'm trying to find her.
She doesn't exist anymore.
Not sure what her.
I just told you,
JoJo baby.
Yeah, JoJo.
J-O,
she got
J-O.
the sugar
Yeah.
foot now. She can.
I don't. There's a bunch of them out there.
Does she not exist anymore?
She's
Sugarfoot.
yeah.
Oh, no.
Hey, so
All right,
hold on.
she has 10.1 million followers.
Still won't do
what?
nothing for us. Still wouldn't do anything for us.
I'll send it to you, Doug. So you have it.
Jeez.
Oh my god! All right, so go back, Justin. You said something we cannot skip.
Yeah, so
This was
okay. I
this
had
was
heard this on
quite
a
possibly.
podcast.
Can I just gotta say this real quick?
Okay.
Okay. I know I do a lot of selling on the podcast,
Yeah,
but the
yeah,
reality is when each one of us has an idea,
Yeah.
we can sometimes close each other on it, even if it's a terrible idea.
Yes.
And Justin
I closed you guys
closed
on
us
a terrible idea.
on this idea. All right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So I heard this on a podcast, and it was like they were talking about creative ways to advertise, and we at the time we're like trying everything. We're throwing spaghetti at all different walls, all different directions, and so this company had success, and it was like I think it was like some kind of fast food company, but they were advertising through porn. I'm like, oh wow, that's bold, like. But they were starting to do the math, and they're like, it's X amount of dollars, and you get this many views and this much.
but it's on a
clicks.
porn site, not making porn.
Yeah,
Let me
on a
be clear.
porn site,
'Cause
you're
that's-
advertising. Yeah, within that
It's the highest view per click rate per dollar.
per dollar.
And then anywhere else on
That's
the
what
internet.
closed you.
Yes.
That's exactly. You brought the math to me. I went,
Porn closed me.
That's really what. Yeah.
Justin's like,
Well, I
we're
just
paying
thought-
only $1. We get this.
Okay,
that's
and
really
then
good.
at that time we were more wild with you saw the titles we were kind of promoting and everything, and we were kind of like just letting loose. And I'm like, well, I feel like we had some pretty wild fan base in the very beginning. I'm like, I don't know, there might be some crossover. So anyway, we all just immediately started coming up with hilariously
We
horrible.
spent a whole day.
Yeah,
we actually
coming up with
dedicated
ads.
a
So
day.
hold on.
Each guy
You gotta paint the picture.
wrote article.
You got to
wrote
paint
ads.
the picture. This was a meeting. We had a long meeting over it. And say, okay, it's cheap per click.
Yes.
Millions of views, the most viewed websites on the internet. How are we going to get people's attention from watching a porn to looking at our ad and then to wanting to click on our ad? That was the struggle. The struggle is who's going to want to leave what they're doing to click on your ad
Hey,
or pay
apparently
attention?
everybody.
Nobody. So we thought
Didn't
of
factor that part in.
crazy headlines and pictures to go with the headlines. And we gave them to Doug. Doug had to go find pictures.
Yeah, Doug had to find the visuals.
Yeah,
We all wrote the ads, the names,
Let's
right?
just say,
Doug had to get his.
I'm glad that's in the past.
Mind pump. We're here to fill all three of your holes.
No,
something like
Dude,
that
it
was an ad.
Yes,
Something
dude, it was
like that.
ads
What
like
were
that.
we doing?
And then we give them to Doug. Hey, Doug, go find pictures for all these.
Doug had 23 viruses on his computer after everybody else.
And did we run any of them?
I think we did try it.
we did,
and
we
we
did.
got zero response.
We actually ran.
We did. We ran some.
Mind Pump was on a porn site.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
not
How
one
great
of
would
our
it be if there's
greatest
a listener today that's like,
That's how I
remember
found you.
seeing- Yeah.
Please, if you found us
Yes.
through porn,
Yeah, we-
don't tell anybody. What are you doing?
Tell me. I
This
wanna
was
know.
our experimental phase.
Yeah. And I remember us talking about it too, being like, well, maybe when they're done, they feel kind of guilty. Like, I gotta get in shape.
Yeah. Oh man, I feel bad about
These guys
myself.
could help.
I
me.
mean, I think we thought the same thing with the what's her face. It's just like, oh, that many views. Like, there's gonna be even if it's a half
Less-
a
We
percent.
thought that mattered. We thought views were a thing.
Yeah.
Great lessons to learn in what we do. That's not how it works. But yeah, that's probably one of my favorite ideas that we ever did, for sure. And then I want to go back to interviews because we did Ben Zorn.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which one was which one was like? I want to say the first kind of impactful one. Was it Chek? Would you say it would be Paul Chek, or were there other ones?
Ben
before?
Greenfield?
Was he before?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Maybe,
Oh
but
yeah.
that was
yeah,
huge.
Yeah. Greenfield was first.
Huge
Greenfield.
crossover.
He was.
I mean,
he
shout
gave us
out
an
to
impact.
Ben Greenfield, which is why for the audience. I mean, Ben's been on our show probably more than any other guest, and a lot of that's just
We always have love
our,
for
our
him.
loyalty, our loyalty to him because he actually had us on his show when we weren't already. Like, of course, once we got big, everybody wanted to do collabs and stuff with us, but Ben gave us a shot to come on his show before we were that big. And since
And we
then,
flew up to his house
Yeah.
to be on his podcast. And Ben is an interesting character.
Yes.
We didn't know him. We knock on his door. He's in Spokane. He's in the snow. We knock on the door. Nobody's answering. Like, what's going on? And out around the corner comes Ben.
Barefoot
In the snow, holding a bale of hay.
Yeah.
And he hands it to us.
Yeah, and he's just here.
And he hands it, here, take this real quick. Follow me.
Yeah.
And we're helping him carry.
We hadn't even met him before. And
Never
we're
met
already
him.
carrying stuff
And
over
we're helping
to-
him stack hay bales. Now, all of us, we knew what was happening. Like, this guy's trying to, I don't know, what's the right word, flex on us, or trying to, like, mentally mess with us or whatever. That's obviously what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he's doing that. Then we go in, then we're walking.
Well, it
to his
became really
house.
obvious when we started the podcast. He came right after.
Right at you, because you were the big guy, right? So he goes right after Adam. He's like, "So Adam, what do you think of SARMs, or what do you think of peptide?"
Yeah,
whatever.
no, he's really into SARMs back
and
then.
I answered right away.
Yeah.
Right then and there. I think right there, then Ben knew. Okay, these guys might know. We had a good episode. Ate at his house. He stood on his chair. Didn't sit on it. He stood on it like a vulture with his big old hands and feet hanging over it, eating. And we kind of hit it off. It was weird, but we kind of hit it off.
Yeah, no, we all liked him.
He's
we all,
weird, but cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
we all liked him as a person. What we all felt about him, and why I think is he's authentic.
Yeah.
Many people judge him because they don't know who he is and never met him, never been to his house. But he is 100%. He lives the brand that he is. Yeah,
he is what you think he is.
And there's a lot of grifters out there. There's a lot of people that sell the biohacking bullshit, and they're all that. Then there's people that are truly, like, you think of, like, I brought up the other day the Brian Johnson guy, that are really trying to live, like, they really are trying to live forever, and they're doing everything they can to do that. And it's not like he's going in and smoking a pack of cigarettes behind closed doors. Like, this guy is living that brand. Ben is that guy. Ben is, his hands. I remember the first time his hands are so gnarly.
He looks like he plays with rocks and logs all day long.
Yes.
With his hands.
Yes.
Yeah, just
And he eats with his fingers.
But that gave us our, that was our first, probably our biggest boost ever.
That was.
Yeah, Ben gave us our first big boost where we went, and that really set us off this, like, oh wow, we have to do these podcast collabs. And so there became a time when, and this is when we really started making money, because I remember the dollar amount. So I remember at this point, so after Ben, the business is starting to turn good revenue. And I knew that we had to do between 5 and 10 collabs in a month, to produce about $30,000 a month in revenue.
Yep.
If we did that many collabs with other podcasts similar in size,
we were flying everywhere.
Yeah.
We were flying people in.
Staying
flying
this
out.
is when Airbnb became a real thing.
Yes.
When we were like taking advantage of that.
that's a regret to me that we didn't photograph every house that we stayed in.
Yeah.
Because looking back now, I mean,
I remember the one in Florida.
There was a lot of cool places we stayed.
we stayed a
and,
ton of houses.
and some shady ones too.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one? It was San Bernardino? Or,
Yes.
Yeah, the porn house?
Yeah, the porn one had leftover stuff there.
That's what at least it looked like. It looked
It's-
like they
I'm
just
sure
finished
that
the set. There was
happened
like
there. Come on.
weed on the counter. And it was weird. We all got creeped out and had to leave that one.
Yeah, we did leave that one.
The January special is here. We have 4 workout program bundles: the new to weightlifting bundle, the body transformation bundle, the New Year extreme intensity bundle, and the body transformation bundle 2.0. Every single one of those workout program bundles is $300 off retail. It's a massive sale. If you're interested, go to mapsjanuary.com. All right, back to the show. The next bigger interview, now, was that Chek? Is that when we saw Paul Chek? Because it was early on.
Paul was pretty early on.
Yeah.
Remember, we were very reluctant to actually go down there.
So I remembered. So
I wanted to cancel. I
yes. So I had somebody that worked in my studio. I've talked about her before. She was a physical therapist, but then she was also a Chek practitioner level 3 or 4.
Stephanie, right?
No, her name was Lori. Stephanie was also, but she didn't work for me. It was Lori. Lori Matroka is her name. She's excellent physical therapist, excellent. She understood functional medicine, and she would always talk very highly of this guy named Paul Chek. Paul Chek is this, Paul Chek does that. He combines wellness with fitness, with health, and you would love him, Sal. He's a judo black belt. He works out, whatever. So I knew of him. And so I said, you know what? Let's get him on the podcast. Let's interview him. You guys weren't familiar with him.
Yeah.
And the day was coming up. We had to fly down to his house to interview him because he wanted us in person. And I remember it was the day before or 2 days before that everybody was like, I remember we had been traveling or something. We were tired. And I think we were like, let's not go. I don't think we should go. And all of us were like, we already made this appointment. We got to maintain our integrity. Mm-hmm. That was what kept us. And and it was so good. I'm so happy that we did.
Yeah.
Because that episode, also took things to another level.
Yeah.
But Paul was an interesting guy.
Yeah.
We show up to his house.
He has some real evangelists.
One of the
behind him.
first things that Paul does is he takes us in his backyard and pees outside right in front of us.
Yeah.
And starts talking to us. He just takes a piss
Anyways, like, this guy is
and we're
free
like,
range.
what is happening?
We
right
all
now?
love Paul too.
And we loved him.
Yeah, he was,
absolutely loved him.
He was awesome.
And that took off.
Yeah, he was. I think that was another great lesson too. Like, I think we realized like you don't necessarily need to be this huge famous person online, because he didn't have much of an online presence. Remember, Paul wasn't like this super. I mean, he had some YouTube videos that but he had a very solid following.
Loyal.
Yes, like he had thousands of people that would do anything he said and like have followed him for decades. And so what we realized was like, oh wow, he has so much influence that someone like that giving us a cosign was massive. So we had a huge part of his audience that came over and started listening. So that was a big Ben Greenfield and Paul Chek, probably two of the biggest catapults, which again, why they remain good friends of ours. Like they met up with us and did podcasts with us before we had really taken off.
Now I got to say this too. It was year one. I went, and we mentioned this earlier. I went through a divorce in the beginning of the start of this new business, and I had been married 15 years with 2 kids. Till this day, is the most challenging thing I'd ever gone through. And it was you guys, and it was the podcast that literally kept me going. It really was, for real. Like I remember showing up, being able to shut everything off, do this, enjoy myself with you guys, and then go deal with that nightmare.
Well, you've always been able to do that. The audience doesn't know this, but I mean, I've seen you in some of your darkest
You can
days.
shield that pretty well, dude.
You could be emotional, could have been crying or arguing or fighting, and then 2 minutes later, as soon as the mics go on, you can completely shut that all off. It's probably your greatest strength and greatest weakness.
It's a superpower on some level.
Say that about yourself, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's served itself well in this business for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember, was there a time business wise where you got really excited about the potential of it? Like, or has it been that way?
Yes.
I remember early on we used to talk about like it's going to be this big, and I remember when Doug too would say things and be like, "Well, we could easily do that every day," and I thought that seems so unrealistic. Like when we were selling just a program a day, and he's like, "Yeah, we could be doing $1,000 a day. Imagine that." Come on, dude, it's not gonna be $1,000 a day. It's a lot. Like I remember thinking like that, and hearing him say the numbers, and not
the first time for me where I was like, whoa. There were 2 of them. The launch of Aesthetic, because that was kind of big, and I remember going, "Oh my god, this is like," I don't remember what the total was for the launch, but at the time for us, it was a big number. And then it was the first Black Friday.
Yeah, I was gonna say Black Friday, and then we had our alarms like set on our phone to Stripe or something, and it would ding you. And I remember just like I was talking with my family, and it's just like ding. Ding, 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 ding. I'm like, ah! I like actually left my family, and then we call you guys, and we all were talking about it. We're like, oh, so hyped.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember when I used to leave the ding on. And
me too.
Yeah, I left that on for a long time. That was a lot of fun to like hear that throughout the day and do the math. Like that's one program every 15 minutes. That's crazy.
That was an interesting one. You guys remember interview? Oh, Layne Norton was another big one. That was another big interview.
That's true.
We did that. Was the first one here?
That was actually
it was here.
Layne's was the first true viral one.
Yeah.
Like, that did over 150,000 downloads in like the first week.
Yeah.
That it had gone out, but you remember why, right?
Yeah,
that was a lot of pent up. A lot of
people thought we were going
to really hate each other, and ended up, doing like a 3-hour episode or whatever like that. Also hit it off
and had a great time with them, and it was good. But I remember too, we had a private forum. And someone in there
you remember when I fucking I launched
that's when
kid.
You went off.
I did.
I was trying to drive to work here to get you come off.
Oh God, I was so fired up.
What did he say?
I mean, of course I overreacted, right? Like, but at that time I'm so protective of our business, and just one thing when it comes to that stuff, like now I have a son now, so don't fuck with my family, don't fuck with my business. And I remember the kid on our forum was trying to start shit about us talking shit about Layne, and Layne was supposed to be flying over, and I didn't want him to cancel and not come because he thought he was coming into like a trap to meet with us. Yeah. And so I flipped out on the kid. I was just like, what are you doing? Like, don't fuck with my business like that when you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And so, yeah, I remember I just railed him on that and then launched him out of the floor.
that episode went great. You know, we were
awesome.
It went great. We became, good friends.
Do you remember if that was the final? It wasn't the final lesson, but it definitely had to be the turning point when we started to realize
don't judge.
We're almost always wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we been wrong? How
on
many
both
times?
sides of it too.
Yes, both sides.
Yes.
How many times have we been excited to meet
I
somebody
love this guy
and completely let down?
Yeah.
Or I don't want to do this interview. And going like, bro, that was great. Or
amazing.
I really like that person.
This kid is smart.
Well, now that I would say more often than not, we're wrong. More often
For
than
sure.
not.
Yeah.
It's rare that we're right.
Yeah.
Yep. I've now trained myself that if one of us is all negged out, I'm like, I'm excited now.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't want to see him, you're all negged out means it's probably going to be a good episode.
Can't wait.
I really do. I've taught myself that if we're like that, we're probably wrong because we're more often than not. Rarely ever are we down about somebody and they come in and we're like, see, I knew.
Unless somebody's hung out with them before and like has some insight, But other than that, if we're just making a judgment based on what we've seen, it's always wrong.
Now, do you guys? Okay, so now I'm going to go back. Do you guys remember Barbell Shrugged during the 3rd or 4th year? They were one of the top fitness podcasts. We got an opportunity to podcast with them.
Yeah.
And at that time, we were watching them and being like, we got to beat these guys. And there was a point there where
competitive for sure.
There was a point there where we were beating them or up close, and it was kind of simple. But they had been around longer than us. They had a CrossFit.
They had
following.
the power of the distinctive brand behind them, right?
Yes,
So it's already like a built-in culture.
And they agreed to podcast with us, and it was all the hosts on one podcast.
Yeah.
And everybody thought it was gonna be great, and it was a great episode. We had a great time.
Yeah.
It was like 3 hours long. We were having everything was awesome.
But it was tension though with their entourage and everybody there. Like it was kind of weird.
It was weird. And then they lost. They lost the episode.
Lost it.
Remember that? They never aired it
Never
on their
aired
end.
it.
And they said they lost it. And we were like, lies, dude. You guys totally didn't lose that.
Yeah.
And that
I remember we all felt that energy from them from the jump.
Yeah.
That it was just, it felt, I mean, we get a chance to meet a lot of people. And again, I think that real quickly, once we get them in this room, real quick, can we establish if you're our people or not?
Yeah.
And if you're genuine. And I think we just felt how inauthentic they were, and that the motives behind even meeting with us and stuff like that were not like, hey, we want to be friends. It was more competitive. As a matter of fact, I remember even telling them some things that we had plans to do in the future.
And they did it.
And they went and did it, with their business and fell flat on their face. And I remember being like, man, these guys had no intention of befriending us. It was always a competitive side. And so silently, that was like a huge competition for us early on was to surpass.
That's the first time we had like little signs and signals within podcasts.
Justin and I we would make animal noises when we were annoyed with the guests.
Yes,
in the background.
Yes. So that became the new thing. If somebody was going to come in with some bullshit, we'd just be like,
In the background. People go, what the hell's going on?
nobody would catch us except for us, and we'd be dying.
Yeah. Where was it, Doug, where we were, and we had, it might have been Layne. It might have been one of his first episodes where we thought
that was
no, it's not his first episode.
It was his first. That was
like his second or third.
Yeah, it was when we went to Florida. We were already been friends with him. But we knew it was going to be a big episode because it was the second or third time we did it with him. And he was already one of our big episodes. And we were flying back from Tampa and Doug had left his backpack and computer inside the
all
Uber.
The files.
Yeah, in the Uber.
And runs back to try and find it.
And they'd already sent the car back to have it washed. So they had to retrieve the car.
That was our friend.
But luckily I got my backpack back.
It did. Yeah. It always works out. That was the first taste of like Cortisol Doug.
Cortisol Doug. Going crazy.
Like, oh my God, what's happening?
Oh,
thank God that's
you had to catch trains
and
everything never to get there. It was like, oh shit.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my God.
So many times that Doug's done that.
My burden.
It pulls it out.
Doug, have you had from going back to early days, have there been moments that you were more excited than other times about the business? Like, do you remember turning points or like you started to get really jazzed? I know since the very beginning, I know I could always count on you to be awake at 1 o'clock in the morning with me and talking about the business, but was there a period of time where you really started to get really, really excited about it?
I got excited after we launched MAPS Anabolic to our group.
Yeah.
We didn't sell a ton of them, but for us, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, as we launched more and more programs and again had the Stripe, notifications turned on my phone, Yeah, that was always fun for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I always enjoyed the creative aspects of the business, watching it, mature, us become more professional, you guys becoming more professional. So all these were exciting times for me.
Yeah. It's a professional part.
The professional part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember when I felt that way, that like, oh, okay, like now we're comfortable, we're professional. It feels like legit, because for a very long time there, I remember having a hard time listening to the podcast.
Really?
Yeah. I still, to this day, I do this, even though it's been a while since I've done this. I'm probably due for this. I will intentionally not listen to any of our stuff for a really long time, and then I'll dip in. And I'll dip in and listen to one episode, and I just want to hear how the conversation is flowing, and do I think it's good, or what, And I remember we used to say this about every 200 to 300 episodes, we would level up.
Better.
Yeah, you would hear this kind of just a little bit sharper, a little bit better content, a little bit better flow. I haven't checked in a long time, to be honest with you, so I should probably do that. But I would do that a lot, where I was like, okay. And then it got to a point where I felt like, I don't know. I don't know if I felt another level of the podcast, but for a long time there, we were constantly doing these little tweaks to the show. I remember the format of the show changed.
The format changed. Although what is interesting is there was always a natural, we've always had a natural division in the podcast with intro and then fitness, intro and fitness. And we never really designed it that way necessarily. We would just open the show with whatever.
Yeah.
And then we would always go into fitness. At the time, it was like 20, 30 minutes in. And it was that format started out naturally.
Yeah.
That was never planned. It was just like, I think that came from training clients. I really do.
Yeah.
That's how I would talk to clients. It was like fun, great fitness, fun, great fitness.
Yeah, and you'd always talk about the entertainment business or something that's going on that's relatable.
Yes.
And then you'd get into like, okay, now let's get to work. And so it definitely had that kind of vibe to it in the beginning.
That's where I think it really came from.
Well, but we flipped that though.
Yeah.
We did flip
we
it.
flipped that on its head.
We sandwiched it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we realized that, at all times there's thousands of people that are hearing this episode for the very first time.
Yeah.
And then of course your clients who you've been training for months or years.
They already know you.
They know you already. They love that part of you. But if it's the first day they met you, you're not doing that stuff. The first day you're getting to know them, you're assessing, you're showing them how smart you are, your knowledge, like that's what you're doing.
You know what I'll tell you that's interesting is that early days controversial fitness advice that we gave today is now common knowledge.
Yeah.
So 10
That
years
was our
ago,
hook though.
Well, it still is.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of crap. Okay. But our big goal was to shift the conversation. That's what we said, right? Shift the direction of the fitness industry or make it a force for good or whatever. And, I'll give an example, like eating small meals throughout the day doesn't speed up the metabolism. That was a big deal to say back then.
Yeah.
It was a big deal to talk about protein the way that we do, to talk about how strength training being the best way to burn body fat. That was a big deal. We got a lot of flack for talking about strength training in that way.
And not, highlighting cardio is the best way to burn fat.
I feel like that one barely
huge.
is just
now.
We're still dealing with that.
Yep. That there's creatine and how it affects the body. Like we were saying that nobody else was. And it was controversial to talk about full body workouts for strength training. Nobody did full body workouts.
Nobody was doing that.
It was all body part splits. And a lot of that was, and now people talk about it like it's, like it's common knowledge. So a lot of things have definitely changed. I do think there's been some
mobility too. I mean, there's a lot of those kinds of things I knew were like just staples within training when I was training clients, but like nobody's talking about it or if they did, it was all these like crazy lizard moves and like unnecessary shit.
Who of all the guests that we've had in the show, who's impacted you the most? Is there any guests you've had where you're like, oh,
impacted?
I'm different? Yeah, where you're like, I'm different after we interviewed that person.
I don't know if I have that. I definitely think that there was the most impactful interview we did was Tony Robbins. And it was simply because of the story. That is the most that day is like, I can tell that story like minute by minute, play by play, how that day went.
It has a whole visual to go with it. In terms of our experience,
it was such a cool moment in the podcast too, to be invited to his house.
Yeah, it was
to
very
come.
unique.
I mean, that's it right there.
This is it right here.
That's it right there. That's us at his house.
Talking.
Oh wow, I didn't even know we had this footage.
Yeah, look at that.
And so remember, we get invited, which is already a big honor, to his house.
Yep.
We find out that his camera crew is fans of our show, which was so cool. Then we meet him. He's every bit as cool as you would think he is,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Makes you feel like you're the only person in the room who's talking to you.
Takes us to an underground bunker.
Yeah, then we go in his house. Is that footage of that down there?
Yeah, that's it.
I didn't know we had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to air it, right? But it was cool.
Where did you?
No, I got that from Eli.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that, dude.
I didn't know you had this. I've never
yeah.
seen this.
Yeah. And it was a big deal to meet him and to.
Oh, it was. So that to me, like, I don't know. I think every episode I've had some sort of a great. I mean, I think we're that's who we are now, right?
Yeah.
It's like this blend of all these great guests that we've
totally.
had that we've got a chance to learn from.
I know it's hard to pinpoint one of them. All of them influenced us in some.
Yeah,
regard,
I know
the
you
good
would
ones.
say Bishop Barron
Easily.
because
Yeah.
that was such a huge
That was a big deal. That was a big deal. For me.
pivotal point
he
for
was,
you.
yeah,
I mean,
great.
that was probably the first time you ever had somebody intellectually break down the Bible to
Yeah.
you. I mean, up until that point, you probably
and it was interesting because at the time you're talking 6 or 7 years ago, there's no PR agency 6 or 7 years ago that would have told us. Now at this point we're already the top fitness podcast, so we're maybe 3 or 4 years deep. We'd already reached the top of our category. There's no PR agency in the world that would have said, yeah, it's a good idea to interview a Catholic bishop, guys. You're the top fitness podcast. You should interview a Catholic bishop.
I remember we were scared.
Nobody would have said that.
I remember we were scared too.
Yeah, and what it was, one thing we all do, we all trust each other. If one of us feels strongly about something, we all tend to go, okay, let's do it, even if we're not necessarily sure. At the time, I was watching Jordan Peterson videos. Bishop Barron did a breakdown of a Jordan Peterson video, and I liked him, and I said, something about that. I want to interview this guy, and I brought it up to you guys.
Such a good communicator. Yeah,
And all of us were a little bit weary, like, how is our audience going to react to us having a Catholic bishop on a fitness podcast? He actually brought us a tremendous amount of listeners. He has such a huge following.
Yeah.
That Bishop Barron brought us a tremendous
I think Arthur Brooks had made a pretty big impact.
Arthur
on me.
Brooks,
he's dropped some knowledge. So is John Delony.
Yeah.
I was just sharing with
John
some family.
Delony's great.
John Delony gave this. This is one of the recent ones he did with me. And Katrina and I, we just did this. I mean, this holiday season is always challenging for me with family and all that stuff like that. And Katrina and I have made this a very regular practice. And this comes from John Delony, the episode we did with him. And that is literally before the day, right? And obviously this works for every day, but really important on days that would be challenging. For me, that is family holiday event stuff with her family and like out of my comfort zone or whatever. And so she's gotten really good at, before that day starts, coming over to me in the morning, just getting out of the shower and be like, how do you see this day going today? How do you see it unfolding? And just letting me communicate and go, well, I think we're going to go do this. Probably spend a couple hours at your mom's, probably do dinner this. Then we'll probably be home by this time. And then I ask her, how do you see it going? Well, I thought we were going to do this and this. That is like crazy hack. And he communicated that in the podcast.
You know your expectations.
Because he goes, most fights that happen are just because you have built up this expectation in your head that doesn't align with reality. And if you would have simply just communicated both your expectations, you would have realized that you weren't aligned to start the day. And I was like, God, that's so true. Like, how many times do I think it's going to play out a certain way? She doesn't, and it really, the fight is all because it doesn't align. It's not even that big of a deal. And if we just had that conversation in the morning, what ends up happening a lot of times, she goes, oh, you thought we were going to leave by 6. I thought we were going to stay till like 9. Okay, well, let's agree to this. Can you hang until 7?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. And then that conversation solves everything. It's crazy how impactful that
He'd
is.
tell you that.
Yeah, I think for me, like Dr. Warren Farrell, this is kind of the first time we kind of tapped into like child
boy
psychology and and he really, because I have 2 boys and it was just one of those things. He was highlighting a lot of things that me and Courtney were passionate about, and it's different. It's not what is prescribed to through the school system and like rough and tumble. And we sought out a preschool that did that, and like, I don't know, he just reinforced a lot of the value in that. And then also too, it just helped me to kind of really understand like that path. Like I want to stick with that formula and really help, develop the kids further with that.
He was very impactful on just the myths around raising boys and children and all that. Super good.
Well, because too, dude, like remember back in, how many years back that was, but it was like the elimination of anything masculine. Like, it was just like, you are not going to talk about this unless it's about feminizing boys.
Yeah.
That was the message everywhere. And that was like such a clear, distinctive light. It was like, oh, this is, finally somebody's like saying stuff that I can abide by.
Do you guys remember we went to On It?
Yeah.
When we thought that was going to be like a big thing.
Yeah.
We went and visited them and they were massive back then. I mean, they're still pretty big, right?
I don't think so, dude.
No?
I don't.
But at the time,
so.
they were like really.
I mean, for us, they were a big deal.
Yeah.
At that time, they were a big deal for us at that time. And I remember, talk about a time of being kind of let down. I remember, I'll tell you the most, the thing that stood out the most to me that was so weird.
Yeah.
Was the facility was like sick. I was just like, this is so awesome. And like 25-year-old me was like, this is exactly what I would build. Yeah. This is how I would hire my staff. Yeah. This is like everything that I would do. And I remember seeing all these like cubicles and desks and all these employees and I remember, of course I'm fascinated by the business behind like what's going on it. And so I'm like, and I'm the type of person who'll just ask random people, what do you do? And so I just start asking all these people. And I must have got through 4 or 5 different people.
They didn't know what they did.
And they couldn't tell me what they did. No. And I thought, this is so weird. They were hot though. They were hot. Yeah. They were hot
good
chicks.
Looking people.
Oh yeah, just gorgeous. Like
or the social media branding.
Yeah, and
something.
They were all social media something, whatever, and nobody had like a real title, could define what their job was. And I was like, oh my God, this literally looks like somebody gave this guy a bunch of money and he just went out and hired all the hottest chicks that he could find and then just gave them random stuff to do.
We interviewed him and he was just weird. Like he was kind of elusive and then afterwards kind of like, hey, do you guys want to? And then he kind of took off and he went to shake Justin like the second or third time.
God,
there was 3
so awkward to watch
attempts
to shake
3 and all of them were horrible, dude. And I'm like, this can't just be me. Like, this is like.
I wish we had that on footage, dude.
I don't know what the problem. It was like you take 2 magnets that are like negative, and it's like. I couldn't like connect.
It was just weird. The whole thing with it wasn't good. It was weird. And then we went and stayed they have a house there. We stayed there. That's when you got sick.
That was weird. That was a weird thing.
You thought like you're like demons were coming after me. That's his exact words.
That's never happened to me where all of a sudden
just randomly
out of nowhere I was just projectile.
You said you were going to call your mom.
I did. I was. I was like, I was that scared.
But you weren't sick.
That was why it was so weird. It was so weird. Yeah, that whole experience was interesting. That was an interesting weekend for us and a different time. Another cool like full circle moment too. We were so enamored by that company. I remember Justin was so infatuated with their branding.
I loved it. Yeah.
They were such a big deal. Yeah. And then I remember us podcasting with them, like that was such a big deal. And then we realized like, man, so much of this is like a house of cards. Yeah. We weren't that impressed anymore. Our podcast ended up skyrocketing beyond where they were at. And it was just like that. And then I remember them coming to us. You guys know we turned down advertising with them. And they wanted us to advertise and it was like, no, we've already moved on from that. Yeah. I remember thinking what a big deal that brand was early on.
What was our first big purchase together? Was it the house up in Truckee? Was that the first investment we did?
Well, the first investment was here.
Well, this was
because we dumped $100 grand into this.
Yeah, we did.
We built the first $100 grand that the company made. We put away. We didn't pay ourselves yet.
We reinvested like for a long time,
and so we took that first $100 grand and built this place out.
Yeah.
And that was what we did with that.
This is where, I know we all bring value, but I really appreciate the value you bring to the team, Adam, as just understanding business. Because at the time, spending $100,000 on a media studio, it felt like, why? Why are we doing so much? What if we just did whatever? But you had a vision, and of course we went with it, and it was the right one. And it definitely turned out to be good. It was a big investment.
No, it was. It was basically pushing all our chips in at that time.
That was in October of 2016. So we're only a little over a year and a half into this.
So it's
yeah, that was all of our. So
that's a big deal.
So okay, I remember
all the money we made.
Now we weren't paying ourselves then.
No,
we were collecting money, but we weren't taking a salary yet. Mm-hmm. So we didn't. So because we took that first $100 grand and it went right back into this.
We built this whole place out.
And then after that, that's probably when I'm trying to think like, when did I feel like we were cranking? There had to come a time where I was like, okay, we're moving now. Like I don't remember what that was. Probably when we started
Year
clipping.
3.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. Can you look back and see when we started clipping 6 figures a month? Do you know?
Yeah, that would have been probably
Year 3 or 4. Year
Yes.
3 or 4. And at that point, then I felt like, okay, it's on now. Like at that point, it was like, once you had built something like that big enough then it was the opportunity was endless.
And then when did we get our place up in Truckee? When was that?
2019.
So that's 3 years after, and that was the first time we'd got like a house together. You know, which is a
well,
big deal.
one of the coolest things that has happened with all of us is that even when stuff started really clipping and we started making really good money, we still
nobody was like, "I pay me. I want to."
Yeah, we were just stacking it in the accounts, and we started to we had really good money put away, and we agreed that we would reinvest it into real estate. And it was so cool that everybody just agreed. Like, I mean, how crazy is that nobody was in a place where they like financially needed that money. And it's 1/4 of it's yours. I mean, anytime a guy could have said, "Hey,
no, I don't want to."
I need that money. I'm building a house, or I'm doing this thing, or my wife and I need it for whatever. And everybody was like, "No, let's. I'm down. Let's reinvest it."
It's just the smart way to do it, and we all recognize that. You know,
that's crazy though.
I know that's unusual.
Yes,
very unusual.
That not
we
only
were mature. I think that's what set us apart a bit.
Yeah, if we're 25, we don't do that. Yeah,
no.
Yeah,
Although if you listen to those early episodes, we don't sound.
We don't sound.
But I
very
mean, looking
mature
back
those
now,
first-
like how cool is that? Like now, I mean, over the course of so what year? You said 2016.
19.
19 is when we bought Truckee.
Yes.
So we're going into 2025.
That's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then after that, we're like, okay, let's invest. Let's make some investments on the side and try and build.
Almost every other month, we were buying a house.
Yeah.
From that point on.
Yep.
Right? We bought that house.
Yeah, for
and
a
then
while there.
Then we had a little break.
Yeah.
We had a little break, and then we went.
Yeah.
Almost.
And then COVID happened. And COVID.
First scare. That was the first scare.
We all panicked a little bit. I think everybody did because you're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the business? We had created Maps Anywhere way before COVID. It was our worst selling program.
Yep.
Not because it's a bad program. It's a great program, but because it's not a gym program. It's when you work out at home.
You do it at home.
And at the time, our audience was a lot of gym people. And we had Maps Anywhere just sitting there. And it turned out to be another thing that's serendipitous, if you want to call it that. Maps Anywhere exploded because people couldn't go to the gym.
We sold more in those 2 weeks than we did the previous 2 years the program existed.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks' time, more than the last 2 years.
Yep.
That's how much better. You know, that was also another really
and
cool.
our podcast grew. Everything grew during COVID.
This was another cool, at least moment for me as far as our partnership.
Do you remember that commercial right there? In the jacuzzi?
Such a good
What were we-
commercial.
Hey guys,
Hey.
guys,
Push the duck back and forth. Come on. There you go. Not what?
we're supposed to do a
What's
Maps
another
White
guy?
commercial.
Huh?
Can't you just do it? No. You're the trainers.
Maybe we should talk about how it's like the only program that's at home, right?
I mean, Doug, can't you just tell them what website to go, where to go to, and
Yeah.
how to find it? It's a special deal
It's
right
the
now.
at-home maps program. You got to say that.
It's at mindpubmedia.com, but don't you need to add some more details about what it is?
I don't know. Maybe. Hey, push that over here.
Maps Anywhere. $77 until June 28th. Get it now.
Quack, quack.
We're ahead of our time, I think.
We were ahead
That's
of our
the way
time.
to say
Yeah.
it.
I feel like people would think it was hilarious now, where then it was probably not so much. We're like, what the hell are these guys doing? No, that was a really important time for me in our partnership, knowing what kind of partners I had. Because no matter what, I don't care what kind of business you have, at some point you're going to hit adversity.
Yeah.
At some point shit gets hard. At some point, whatever. And that was a scary time on what's going to happen. We had really pushed a lot in. We had really invested a lot. We were really counting on this thing continuing to grow. And here comes COVID, and people aren't going to be using the gyms, and we all kind of freaked out. And to see everybody kind of respond and that desperation of we got to figure this out, and then it ended up, I think we had our biggest month ever right after that, right? So it ended up being the biggest month we had ever had in company history. After what we thought would be the
Well, there
scariest.
were a few things that helped. One was we had Maps Anywhere. Two was a lot of people turned to the podcast because it was a tough time. And we knew this. We actually met on this and said, all right, guys, people are going to need health more than ever. And they're going to need a lot of help with mental health, with, of course, their physical health. And so we all felt this sense of purpose behind the podcast. Like, let's get out there and let's help people. So a lot of the episodes were geared around how you can help yourself mentally, improve your health.
Actionable things to do.
Yes.
No, we agree.
Yes.
We agreed to stay very positive.
Very positive.
Remember, we didn't want to attack anybody at that time. It's like it's not the time.
Everything's
to do that.
negative. Everything's scary.
Yeah. Let's stay positive.
People having a tough time.
Like that. But I mean, we also went back and took all of our main programs. Justin went back and rewrote all those and shot those to be at-home versions. So we did a lot of things to make sure like we were positioned to be okay.
Yep.
And it did. It ended up being which again why that was so important. It's like when it was probably one of the scariest months or times in the business ends up being one of the most successful was such a testament to like, oh, the type of partners that everybody is. Everybody is the type that's like, hey, it's if this thing is going to go down, I'm going to do everything I can.
Speaking
to make sure
of partners, our first partner that ever sponsored us was what's the company?
Chimera
Coffee.
Chimera.
Did they reach out to us?
Yeah, they were fans of the show.
They reached out to us,
Yeah, they were
and
fans.
they paid us like $300 a month.
They were $300 a month. They were really good about finding talent early. They found Juji Mufu
That's right.
before
That's
anybody knew
right.
who he was, right? And so they had him and us. So Juji, I love this commercial.
This
is one of my favorite commercials we ever did.
Where are we here anyway?
This is the other studio.
Oh, that's our other studio.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people actually saw this.
This-
Oh my God.
It's all over my face.
Dude, that's one of my favorite that we ever did.
It's for people who aren't watching this on YouTube. So it's literally, I'm walking into our old studio. It was a commercial. Chimera was a coffee company. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm walking in and it looks like Justin and Adam have cut up lines of coffee and are snorting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we thought this was a good idea to make as a commercial for our partners who had a healthy coffee.
It's insane. Check it out. What the hell are you guys doing?
I think they loved it.
They did.
That was our first.
Because they got it. Right?
They were our first partner. And then for about
we got no partners for a long time.
Yeah, for a long time.
And I remember I remember exactly when it was like, we're going to go after partners. It was at Paleo FX.
Paleo FX, yep.
Paleo FX, it was, it's like a wellness, well, paleo, right? Paleo convention. It was a bunch of wellness fitness people.
Yeah, you filmed Four Sigmatic there.
And yes, and I remember getting hyped and going, I'm going to walk around these booths and I'm going to make some connections.
Got into closer mode.
And we did. We went and we met people and we got our first sponsors from that. That was a good time.
I was really proud of that side of the business. That was something that, and still to this day, we operate that different than almost anybody else.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how many people have copied what we did and then tried to mirror what we've done on that side, but we were so different than anybody else. And I just saw the opportunity for it. When I remember working these deals out with these partners, I thought it was so interesting that there was this generic CPM that everybody abided by. It was like, oh, if you have for every 1,000 people that listen to your podcast, we pay $35. And so if you're getting tens of thousands and that's $350.
Which makes no sense. You could have one podcast that's great at converting and one that's
right. And so I thought that was so weird. I'm like, and everybody was playing by this rule. And I'm like, this is bullshit.
made up ass rule.
Yeah. And at that time too, I was really confident in our skills, right? I was like, I know our ability to sell things and sell a product. And if we're going to only partner with products that we believe in, that we're excited about, then I know we're going to convert better than some Joe Smo who just partners with them because they have the exact same downloads that just doesn't make any sense. And so I was out to prove that. And then also like I saw that anybody and everybody that started to make money in the partnership side or advertising would sell everything. You sell a newsletter, they would sell a post on Instagram, they would sell a YouTube clip, they would sell an ad reel, any way they could to make as much as they could to advertise. And every partner would expect that. So they would meet with me and they'd be like, okay, well, how much for the ad on the podcast? And for how about if we do 4 posts of Instagram? And it's like, no, that's not how we're going to do this.
And they're part of a network. So they're like cutting, you have like all these middlemen in between the whole thing.
Yeah.
You just took that on like and made it our own.
Yeah, because then I saw that you had all these other grifters that were being middlemen between everything, making 20 to 30% of the revenue. So not only do you have these generic CPMs you're going by, then you got middlemen that are making 20 to 30% off of it. And everybody was like, this is crazy. This makes no sense. And so the way we shook it up was, okay, we're gonna agree on a price that I agree on, that I believe that my partners and I can deliver on. And if we don't, I'm going to commit to you that we'll make good by using all of our other platforms. And the goal was never to use the other platforms. It always was, can I price it right that they're happy and satisfied with the commercial? Because we didn't want to oversaturate all of our mediums with advertising, especially considering that we have our own product, our own thing that we sell. So it was like, okay, let's see if I can price it right to where they're happy with the podcast. But if for some reason they're not, we'll use those other mediums. And partners were like, what?
And my favorite aspect of these early sponsors was how they would listen to us talk about their product. First off, we only worked with, and we still do this, we only work with a company that we like their products, we believe in them. Otherwise, we're not going to work with you. It doesn't matter how much you can offer us. We're not going to work with you. So that's number one. But number two, when we talk about the product, I don't want you to tell me how you want me to talk about it. And I'm going to be very honest. And this is how I communicate anytime I sell something, because it's honest. And so we would have sponsors get mad at us until they saw the conversions. Like I remember Adam saying, one of the products worked really well, but it tastes like shit. And the company, of course they get mad. Why would you say a company or product tastes like shit? And Adam's like, because it tastes like shit. Yeah. It doesn't taste good. And then they came back to us a few weeks later like, oh, you guys are selling a lot of this product. So let's just leave it. That's it. It's like, you don't think our audience knows that if they try it, they're going to be honest. No. But it works. So,
no, it's been great. We've had full control of that since day one, and have always agreed that, well, again, we positioned the business where we didn't need that. In fact, early on, we said we might not ever do any advertising, because early on, any of the companies that were coming around were like these random startup supplement companies, and none of us were excited about that. None of it was product we use. But once we're garnering enough attention that we could actually attract some bigger brands, then we went after brands. Then it was like reaching out to companies and trying.
Some of these, not much of this Magic Spoon commercial.
Bro, those were so good.
Why is that so good?
Magic Spoon. I love Magic Spoon. Can I have some? Hey.
It's so good. People need to see this.
It was too early, you guys.
We should sell it back to Magic Spoon.
Take
it off and sell it to them.
That's a good one. I love that.
I actually want you to share all these, Doug, with me, because I want to repost some of them because I think they were so good.
They're so good.
I mean, I remember when I was encouraging Justin.
That one was a little too elaborate. I mean, I went way too
this is what we gave
sci-fi with this.
This is what we gave Justin carte blanche.
Yeah, I went too far with this one for sure.
Well, what I was hoping would happen.
It was so good.
This was like when we were talking about, are we going to be a media company, and are we going to do things outside of this podcast? And I believe that the relationship that we were building with our partners and Justin's creativity, that we could become the people that these brands come to create commercials.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, if Justin could hit it out the park with some of these commercials, that we would start making commercials for all of our partners, that they would run on TV and stuff like that. And this was our attempt.
People were just so
I thought it was fire.
Well, you know why it didn't work was because people are very protective of their brand. They have a very distinctive way they want to present it.
Yeah.
And it's not, whenever it's an idea that's coming from an outside, way less adoption. This is a lesson I had to learn.
I bet you could sell those back to our partners.
I agree.
I bet you could go back to Juve and go sell it to
I think if Magic Spoon ran that commercial, I think it would do good.
So do I.
For sure. The Magic Spoon one was money.
You should sell it.
Which one was that one?
Oh, this was for our MAPS programs. I was pretending to be a Beachbody version, which was like the devil's version.
How much money did we spend?
Everybody dying. This was not much because Eli was bought in on the fact that he was trying to expand his skills.
Yeah.
And so we were like really stretching this out to see what we could produce. And he did a great job.
These are so fire.
Would have been expensive for sure.
They're so good.
They are so good.
This is so good, Justin. You're brilliant. He's so upset right now.
I am upset. I don't know what to say because I really wanted it to happen and it just didn't.
I wanted it to happen too. I thought it was a great idea.
It's just one of those things. You try a bunch of things and then you see what lands and I'm just gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
So
we got to sell some of those back. I bet you some of the sponsors would buy some of those back.
I mean, I would be happy they just used it. I think they should have used it. I was mad. I remember that was okay. So I remember too. I was really annoyed that these we went and produced all that stuff and put all that effort, money, and time into creating that, and that they weren't even sharing it on their platforms. I was I was so mad about that because it was like, I remember I wanted Justin to go first prove the model, go get these people excited, and I thought that was good enough to get them excited and share it. Then I'll be able to charge for it in the future. But the fact that they didn't even use it, I was so mad.
Okay, so Paleo Valley did use one of them.
They did.
And they used it and they put it on ESPN. And
Yeah.
they told me that later. I'm like, dude, I didn't even know that. Like,
I
you
knew
should have told me that.
I knew that they did. They used it, the one when you're in the suspenders.
It's not that one. Yeah,
It's
it's
the
when
farm
I'm
one.
talking to the pig.
Yeah.
It's what,
Oh, hey. Try Paleo Valley beef sticks. Made with 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, it was so great because I shot that up at Eli's family's ranch, and like he had this huge pig and like I had a horse, and so we like did all these shots with like animals, and it was really weird, but it totally was great.
Any brands that you guys wish we had or that you missed that we had before?
that I miss.
Yeah. I mean, you're a big Four Sigmatic guy. We're
I
not
like
with them
Dr.
anymore.
Squatch.
I like
think
Four
that
Sigmatic.
they
Dr.
got a
Squatch
big head.
broke my heart.
Yeah, right?
They broke my heart.
Oh, we're just gonna go right
Hey,
to Super Bowl.
Hey,
Oh, okay.
One that was a good thing, even though they're Crush and they're a great company. And
Liquid Death.
Liquid Death.
Yeah.
They're too satanic. They're really satanic.
Okay,
bro.
can we
That
talk
wouldn't
about
work.
this? Because
jumped the
literally
shark.
they had a video, and you could look this up. Satanic priest like cursing their entire warehouse of water.
Yes.
Like, for
and you're
real
supposed
or
to
for-
sell that to people.
And
like
it does,
just
and they sell.
it's
I
just
know.
it's just
Why
mind
did we
blowing to
stop
me.
working with them? It just
And you got people to sell their soul, on their website.
Yeah.
For a case of water.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm glad we're not working with them for that.
That's
I don't want to
crazy.
work with with that now that, especially now that I understand.
Yeah,
that
they did.
stuff.
They did like a.
It's wild. I almost want to make a counter to that, dude. Like some holy water or something.
holy water.
Yeah, it's just like
It might do well with the changing of the tides.
angelic water. That's
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Tides are turning, dude.
Yeah, it's real holy
You
water.
know?
for sure.
Yeah, I was bummed about Dr. Squatch. I really liked that brand. I was really, and also their humor, their commercials. I thought, oh, this is going to be another great synergy. We crushed for them too. So I thought when I got the numbers back, I was like,
right.
oh, hell yeah, this is going to be a great partnership.
Their
And
eyes were just elsewhere.
Yeah.
But some of these companies, they're just like,
Which one is this, Doug?
Dr. Squatch.
Oh yeah, look at that.
oh, you did a Dr. Squatch one too?
Jeez, I got naked a lot back then.
Bro, I don't remember this one.
I don't remember this one either.
does
I
it do?
vaguely do. I think
Is somebody in the shower with
It's
you?
one of
It's
his
like a
little
fart
bit,
joke.
let's just say, racy concepts.
Yeah.
About
Is there somebody in the shower with you?
no,
No,
he's by
it wasn't
himself,
that
but he's washing his backside, if you will, and his farts are now whistles.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
why, dude? Why did I
So
come on?
good.
That's so.
Please share all these files with
What
me.
was I
It's
thinking?
because he got so clean, bro.
Dude, I forgot.
I mean,
about that.
it's a
Clean as
funny
whistles.
premise, but like that, like
I
why?
seriously think that you can make
Oh my
a
God.
10-minute compilation of all the stuff that we're talking about.
Totally.
And I would want to watch it because
I
I
would.
forgot about half of this stuff.
That is so fire. What a great commercial.
Yeah, it's
Again,
simple.
missed opportunity.
But yeah.
know.
Oh well.
I know.
Missed
Anyways,
opportunity,
Shut
buddy.
that in.
I would like to
Truckee.
see one of those companies pick one of those up and use it.
Wow,
I don't even want to get paid for it. I think it will do good. I really do think it will do good.
when was it that Hachette reached out to us for a book? Because that was a big deal.
That was all you.
Yeah, it was, but it was a big deal.
3 or 4
It
years
was a
ago,
huge
right?
deal.
Yeah, that was cool. They reached out, wanted a book.
I think the
and
coolest part about that was also another sign of like our partnership was that you decided that would just all go in the pot.
It was never a question.
I know, but none of us would have questioned either if you would have taken all of it.
No, never a question. That the goal, the idea with the book. First off, I don't know if this is when you're on a team and you're winning and you're on a team, it's your team. Your team. It's never just you. It's just not the way it works. And none of that would have been possible
100%.
without all of this. But nonetheless, the goal with that was to give me an opportunity to get onto the podcast. That's the whole idea. Was I'm going to write this book, regardless of how well it does. It's going to get me on other shows so I can do what I do best, which is talk.
Yeah.
And then bring people over.
Great, a whole nother level of authority with it too. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. A lot of people still just base that off of
Such an
books.
honor, but what a scam though too.
Oh,
Yeah.
What a hustle how they find people like you who've got enough pull. You're going to sell a bunch of
oh yeah,
books.
they
no
do
matter-
nothing.
Yeah, and
They promote
I remember
nothing.
how excited we were. Like they were going to promote you, and like, oh, he's going to be on Good Morning America. And like, we thought you were going to get all this like
right.
traffic, and like the 2 podcasts they suggested were smaller than any of our friends' podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, come on, dude. Like we can make a phone call and get on 10 podcasts twice as big as these.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah. But it did do it did accomplish the goal though. There was a whole year there where I was just on so many podcasts because of that book, and it was a great opportunity to be able to meet other people, bring them over. It was a good time.
Remember, you know, another thing we did that I thought was so cool that I wish we'd bring back. You remember the What's in My Bag?
Oh yeah.
That we used to do with Ben Greenfield, Jordan Shallow,
Mike Matthews.
Those
were great.
Those were really, really
Those were
good.
funny.
That was a big collab for us. Mike Matthews has been a great friend.
Yeah.
I think there's some of the people that become really good friends. Max Lugavere, Jordan
Shallow.
Matthews.
Yeah, Arthur Brooks.
Even DeFranco Smitty for me has been
DeFranco.
great.
You know what? That was a big deal.
I was going to mention that too.
When DeFranco, who
That was cool.
we all looked up to,
Yes.
before we started the podcast, he's an excellent trainer. He's one of the best in the world, and we all knew who he was. We invited him to come on the show, and he said he liked our show.
Yeah.
He was like a fan of ours, and
Yeah.
he flew all the way
That
over just
tripped
to be
me
on the
out.
show. And I was like, "Oh my god, dude, this is wild! This is wild." That was a big.
A
deal.
lot of those have become good friends.
Yeah, Layne, of course, Stan. Yeah, that was a good. Those are. It's been an interesting.
Oh, I'll give you another person who made a big impact on me that I learned a lot. Attachment Adam.
Oh yeah.
Attachment Adam was the first episode I ever sat down and watched with Katrina, like from front to back. I've never done that with my wife. I don't know if you guys have done that with your wives or not.
Once, yeah.
One time. Yeah.
Just one time.
Only one time I sat and watched an entire episode with Katrina, and it was Attachment Adam because I thought that was such an impactful episode. So he's somebody who's made an impact like that.
Yeah.
I guess I have to go through. I have to think about because I think a lot of people have made impacts like that where it was like, oh, that was a big deal.
It's the fastest 10 years I've ever experienced, I think. Even though when I think and look back, so much has happened.
It's a fire hose of knowledge, dude. Look at that list Doug's going through right now.
We haven't even scratched the surface.
Doctor. Look how many doctors that we've had. Remember that Dr. Kirk Parsley?
Yeah.
Oh my God, his story.
Yeah. So,
dude.
you know, selfishly, one of my favorite things about this is you have an opportunity
Oh, Don Saladino,
to
another good friend.
meet people that you never would have an opportunity to meet. For me, you know, one of the biggest deals was interviewing Jordan Peterson.
Yep.
Sitting in the room and
Yeah, that was a big
interview.
deal.
That was a big deal.
I'm disappointed in myself on that one.
Yeah.
Because I mean, of all the interviews, probably the most prepared for his because of how much content I've consumed of his, right, and books read. So, and I really wanted to bring something out different in that, but I don't feel like we did.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
I think we were a little starstruck. Or
Well,
I
it
don't
was
know.
short too. I felt like it was a short episode.
But not because it was made short. Like it wasn't like he cut us off and said I have to go.
That's right.
I feel like we could have got something better out of him.
Yeah. We
it
would
was-
need more episodes with him.
It was flat for how amazing he is and how much we all like him. I
Yeah.
thought that we could have got something better out of it. I
we
don't
could
know.
definitely do a better job if we do it again.
When was our first live event? When did we do that?
Are you going to include the Tahoe one?
Is that the first? Oh, you mean the podcast hard event?
Yeah. That was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool.
That was
we
cool.
blew a lot of money on that.
A lot of money.
It was 40 grand.
That was
Was it 40?
Yeah, 40 grand. That was a big
That was a
expense.
big chunk.
40 grand, getting a bunch of podcasters in one roof, and then just doing a bunch of podcast swaps.
Yeah, it did.
There
Here it is right here.
Yeah,
I mean, it solidified a lot of relationships.
it did.
Jordan Shallow was there. Mike Matthews was there. Ruscio was there. Josh Trent was there.
Who was the Paleo OMG?
the
Was
girl.
she the one afterwards? Was talking about it was a bunch of bros. Or
Yes.
whatever
Yeah,
podcast.
She was the one that talked shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had
I'm like, man, we went
comments.
out of our way to make it a comfortable,
Yeah.
great environment.
I was annoyed by her.
That was
Yeah,
She was
that's
wild,
yeah,
dude.
that was rude.
Never be on
She
my
was
show.
rude, dude. To be honest,
super.
Yeah,
rude.
where's she now?
Yeah, I don't know. to
What's
be
she
honest.
doing now?
She might still do her thing.
I think I looked her up not that long ago because I think someone
Really?
brought her up not that long ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder where she. Oh, Ben Pekulski, also a good friend. Yeah. So I mean, this was. I think Ben Greenfield was there too. So I think we solidified a lot of our relationships on that trip. I think everybody had a good time. I think we threw a good party. It was a good event.
Yep. Mike Matthews was interesting meeting him the first time. Right? That was one of the ones where you're like, I love this guy.
Oh, Matt Vincent was there too.
oh yeah,
We
Vince.
haven't talked
We
to
haven't
him
had
in a
him
while.
in a long
Christina
time.
Yeah.
was there.
Remember Christina? Remember what impression she made on us?
Oh yeah.
Christina made such a good impression.
That's what.
Little fireball.
Well, that's when Adam and I went to LA to do a bunch of podcasts.
Yeah.
And we had someone cancel, and so Katrina's like, "Do you want me to just fill it with somebody who wants to interview?" And we're like, "We're down there anyway. Let's do it." And it was this 20-something-year-old girl who
in
wanted
her
us to
little
be on-
tiniest studio.
and she
in her house.
And she was so confident, and she was poking fun at us and whatever. And we're like, we love this girl. Like, you're great.
Yeah.
And so we just became great friends. I still talk to her.
She became like our little mini me for a while there.
Yeah. So you're a little sis.
We were. I remember we were plugging her for a long time, trying to help her.
I still
out.
talk to her.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I still talk to her.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while we'll check in or whatever. Yeah. We all became friends. Jessica and her and I all became friends. So
I loved her. She's great.
Yeah.
She was great energy, man.
So what do you guys think about the next 10 years?
Trainers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the big
Develop
shift.
the army.
Is and it'll be like most.
I mean, keep doing what we're doing, but also with a big focus on developing trainers and coaches to go out there and do the work, to really do the work that, we try to do with the podcast. Train people effectively and do a great job.
I mean, I think we had to first establish ourselves as an authority in this space to then get the respect from all the coaches and trainers to go out and teach them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so first help general pop like we have for a very long time. Along the way, we've also helped a lot of coaches and trainers too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now we can move into that space of like really helping and influencing that space, I think with some authority. And I think the cert is going to be huge. I think this year, hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days, we'll find out about NASM.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that getting it established as CEUs for that, and then making a big push, the CRM, I think what we're doing with the software side is incredible. So the next 10 years is that. And I expect it to be hard. The first year, this year is going to be real. This, in my opinion, is going to be the hardest year we've ever had to replicate. We've ran for 9 years, year over year growth every single year, and somehow pulled out this year. I thought this year was going to be the hardest year ever, and we pulled it out. But we also started 2 new big businesses that established that helped that. So to replicate that and to surpass that this year is going to be unbelievably hard. Yeah. So I think a lot of it's going to be centered around the trainers.
What's crazy is when we started this 10 years ago, my oldest was 9. My second oldest was 5, and my 2 little ones were not here. You didn't have a son.
No.
Your kids were how old was your oldest was 5?
Yeah, so we've been doing this 10 years. Yeah. I mean, my youngest, let's see, so math, because 14, like Ethan's 14 right now.
Yeah,
right?
so even 4.
Yeah, 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then Everett was.
Yeah, he wasn't even there.
Really?
Yeah, he was born.
Wait a
Is that
second.
right?
No,
that's not right.
No.
He was newborn.
He was a little guy.
Little guy.
Wow.
God, he was that little?
Yeah, he was little.
And
It's 9 years ago. So
newborn
9
phase.
years ago, essentially.
How
9
how
years
old is
ago.
Everett?
Yeah,
How old is Everett?
10.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, so he's 1.
Yeah.
He's 1.
He was a little guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I know. So I'm just tripping out thinking about like how,
And we started this.
how he was tiny then. That doesn't make sense to me. It like doesn't compute.
Yeah. And that's when we started this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ethan was Max's age.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Oh,
if you remember,
I mean, we were going through it too. So you had hard times. Like I was in the, because of having the little kid
Yeah.
and having a
You
lot
guys were
of
both working. You and your
both
wife.
working and separate. And I was like, also, I didn't even mention, I was like trying to develop a product, an
Yeah,
invention.
on the
And
side.
then it was pulling me in like 3 different directions. And I was just, it was all self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And I had to just cut it all out and realize, where to put my eggs and then reestablish like my relationship and repair everything. It was a long road, dude.
Oh,
that was a
now
rough
it feels
patch.
like a long time when you
Yeah.
look back.
Now that I think about
well, that
it.
was a huge transition for you guys. You went from Courtney being, working crazy hours as a nurse to being a stay-at-home. What year was
She was
that?
my whole health insurance, dude. Yeah. She stopped actually the year before COVID. So
2019.
19.
Wow.
So it's been a while now.
Doug, your daughter was 9, right? Or 8.
8 years old.
8
You remember
years old.
when we first started this, I was talking at that time not having kids.
You didn't want it. Well, you said I'm fine without him.
Yeah.
And I would keep trying to convince you
Yeah.
to have a kid.
Like,
Yeah, that was a
we'll
big
see.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you had your son. Yeah.
I remember when you had Max and it was like you had just come back. It was like a month in or something like that. And you're like, You're like, oh, it's easy, man. You just,
No, it wasn't. It was 2 weeks in when I said that, and you were giving me shit.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's fine, bro. It's no
because all
problem.
he did was sleep at the very beginning. His eyes were barely open. He was, he came out a month early, so all he did was sleep. And I was just like, this is so easy. Because you're like, oh,
just wait, bro.
I remember everybody gave me shit about that. You know what I'm saying? And then I also remember too, I was like, he's not going to see a TV till he's like 10.
I mean, I went from divorce and then meeting Jessica, not anticipating that, falling so hard for her, and then fighting the entire time of, I don't want to get married, not going to get married, not getting married. And then finally just like, yes, we're going to do this and we're going to have more kids. Hitting the reset button. The reset button and having two little ones.
Oh my God.
So now it seems like a long time when I talk about it like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about Ethan and Everett. I didn't realize that Everett was that little when we first started.
Actually, now it all makes sense because remember when we did our first, when we went for the live at the Orange Theory, and I remember getting ready for that, and I was coming back over the hill, and I had told you guys that like Everett had like swallowed a marble, and we took him to the emergency room. I was like freaked out, like because I had literally that was then.
Wow.
And then I just had to shake it off, and then we went and performed and did our thing.
We were here when that happened.
No, it was in Will Glen.
Wow.
Yeah. So
little guy.
He was little, little dude.
Wow.
And then and I do remember now too, like I remember like incorporating some sponsorship stuff on my Instagram with them, and they'd jump out of the butcher box.
Little guys.
And I was trying to kind of tie them into some of the sponsorship stuff.
Time flies.
Yep. And now they're huge.
Time flies, dude.
Yeah, that makes me go like, oh my God, dude. Before I know it, Max is going to be this teenager.
He's going to be a stud, dude. Just big and watch out, man.
It feels, I mean, at least for me right now, it feels like I've got to really enjoy him being a little guy. Like I feel like he's been a little guy for a long time.
Do you ever, when you look at pictures of him when he's like 1, do you go, oh my gosh, look at that?
I mean, I do, but I also, every phase has gotten better.
Of course.
So I'm in love with the phase that he's in right now. So there's not this like, oh, I wish he would go. Because I know sometimes you hear parents like, oh, I wish I missed the 2s or I missed this age. Like I don't miss any age because the current age is so cool. Like I love where he's at right now. And maybe that's too because we've always had this incredible bond since he was born to 5 years. And I guess maybe if and when he goes through a phase when we don't have that, I'll probably look back and go like, oh, I miss the days when he liked to hang out with me all the time because he's still at that. So I still get to enjoy
What a timeline for our kids if they ever want to do this. It's a lot, but for them to listen to all those episodes.
It's all mapped out.
Here, that's a cool thing to talk about because you guys have the older ones. What age and what kid does that first?
Oh,
because at one point they will, but it might not be till they're like 30, bro.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be my daughter, my 15-year-old, probably when she's in her 30s. I would say she'll probably be the one to listen first.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be Everett just because he's
into the space.
He has a knack for he wants to be a podcaster and he wants to entertain, and he's like really. He would be really good at it. He'd be way better at it than me. He's like super articulate. Like I can't believe like how he puts sentences together and how he thinks about things. It trips me out actually.
You know what's crazy about that in an audience that's been listening for a long time? Remember, you were worried about that stuff with him. You were always so like Ethan was going to be like the super smart kid. He was reading at a young age. Like
he was.
You were worried about Everett being that way, and he rocket ship caught up.
Yeah, he's on another level.
That's so great.
It's wild to watch. Again, this is always like this is kind of like was the chip on my shoulder with my dad. Is like he didn't think I was going to go that far academically, and so that was like my. That was my juice. I was like, I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to do all these things because it was just like, I was overlooked. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that to my kids, I'm already doing it. Yeah. I'm like, damn it.
Do you think, so what age do you think he'll do it recently? Do you think or soon? Do you think he'll listen to it soon? Or do you think it'll still wait till he's teens?
I don't know. I think probably more high school because that's when the elective, so at this school he's at, they actually have an elective for podcasting. And so I was like, he already wants to like be in it. And then
that's
I'm like,
an elective?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
How cool is that? And the guy,
it's a legit space now.
So my dad's a podcast.
I know, right? I can only imagine because it's funny because the teacher actually has his own podcast, and I was like, oh, really? What does he cover? Guess what he covers?
What?
Star Wars.
Oh,
Shut
God!
I'm not even joking, dude. I was like, what in the actual F.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, who knows? It'll be
You
interesting.
guys remember the first like so this was always really because I remember my family was like the last to like buy in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't until they started having friends of theirs or acquaintances of theirs talk to them about the show did they really go like, oh my God, like you guys are kind of doing stuff over there. Like my friend from work, do you remember like the first person in your family like that happened to? Because
I had, well, my cousin's wife was a supporter right out the gates, but I had a cousin who I don't really ever talk to and I ran into and they're like, oh my God, I love your podcast. I was like, what? Yeah. You listen to my show? And this was probably 5 years in. I think it was when the first time I heard that, about 5 years in.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom listened early on because she's my mom. And I remember her going, it's not my style, and I don't like some of the stuff you say, but I like listening to you talk or whatever. Typical mom, right?
No, so my mom was like, not having it. My mom listened to a few episodes and she's like, never again. She's like, I'm not listening to anything like that. She does not like it at all. Yeah. Her husband listens to it. And so he listens to it. But even my close friends, it wasn't until they had like coworkers that brought it up. And it had to be like situations like this where someone's just like referring to them like, hey, you got to listen to this podcast, Mind Pump. And they're like, Mind Pump, are you serious? And like, yeah, they're so good. And they would rave about the show. They're like, that's my boy or that's my buddy or like that. And they'd be like, what? And then they get all fanned out. You know what I'm saying? And then it's
fine, I'll listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my sister-in-law down in San Diego. She was at a gym and was talking to somebody and had mentioned my name and was kind of explaining, and she's like, Justin from Mind Pump, and like freaked out and like was all. And so she texted me after that. She's like, this person was like freaking out about that I know you and that you're related to me on some level and all this. And it was funny because like, I think it's more Courtney's family kind of took off with it, and then like my family just now is catching up. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like my family and friends were late to the party. Katrina's family and friends had enough stuff happen to them.
Those are the last people, the people that know you.
Yeah, the closest.
Because they know you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's nothing special about anything you're doing.
No, I know
until other people.
I've heard all your stories. Yeah. And, I always get that. And I'm just like, oh, have you? Like, I don't know. Like, you probably learned something.
I think the hardest thing for me still to this day to handle is the people that are connected to you somehow that are asking for advice or help, and you've definitely talked all about it on the show, or you have
so frustrating.
You have content that's just like, you literally
send them an episode.
Yeah. Or go to askmindpump.com. I mean, we literally have AI now.
I gotta start using that. I gotta just tell people, just go here.
Askmindpump.com. I don't know, you guys, I don't know how often, Doug, you check in on it or not, but the AI is getting better.
Right? Yeah.
It was good from the beginning. It's really good now. So I know our team uses it all the time.
I know you better than you know yourself.
You're going to take our jobs, dude.
No.
It's only a matter of
in my
time.
voice, in my style.
Yeah, but better.
But better. Yeah. I've taken all your best episodes and compiled them.
Yeah. I took out all your ums and likes.
All your douchey comments are gone.
I wonder if we're heading that way, dude.
Yeah,
I wonder if it's going to be like that.
No, this is 100% organic. This is real.
Human made.
Didn't we put that on the thing?
Yes, on our cover art.
Human made. We didn't start a trend with that, by the way.
It will.
Hey,
it
We will. It's the long game.
Yeah,
it's the long game.
Everything we do is way before.
It's way before everybody's even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like,
in 10 years, that'll be everything.
that is like my Achilles heel, dude.
Yeah.
Too ahead of your time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for the next 10. It's I can't see myself not doing this in some capacity. That's how much I enjoy. Doing this.
It's the best.
It's a great time, and we're actually helping people, which feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet people that you impact, and it's been a long but very fast and exciting time. I've grown more in the last 10 years.
Fun, challenging, rewarding.
I grew more in the last 10 years than I grew in the previous 30.
I agree.
Easily.
Easily. I mean, when you, like I said,
you can only see it in our hair.
Doug's got Doug's got a list of all the people that we've had on the show, and as he was scrolling through it, I'm just looking at it, I was like, dude, like, first of all,
a mountain of people.
90% of them have books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And half of them are doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we've had the opportunity to pick their brains and talk to them and or do research on them.
Super educational for us.
I don't know if I don't think you could have I don't think I could have grown any faster if I tried.
No.
Yeah.
If this was all done for free, you guys, it would have still been extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Doug, you put some questions together in your list. Were there things that you wanted?
Well, I think one of the questions I wanted to know, I think I know the answer, but is why we haven't killed each other in 10 years. Because we have 4 people. It's like a marriage.
Yeah.
And we all have different personalities. And the truth is, you either grow together or you grow apart.
Yeah.
And we happen to make it for 10 years and potentially 10 more.
That's, you know, one of those funny. That's one of the most common questions I got asked about the podcast when I'm on other shows. How do you guys get along? You guys are equal partners. How does that work? For me, I think it's respect. I think we all have a common goal. That's true. But we all have mutual respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
it has to be that has to be the foundation.
It is.
That has to be the foundation, because I don't think you can even build on it unless you have that. So I think that is I do think that, at least in the social media, podcast, YouTube space, whatever you want to call this, it's rare that you could put 4 people that are in it, that are doing it, that none of them really want the attention.
Right.
I think that is a huge part of it. That 4 of us, and we all want to win more, like, so bad, right? All of us are unbelievably competitive in our own ways, but not with each other, but to win collectively. And nobody needs to be the guy who gets the credit.
I'll take it even a step further. I think all of us kind of don't want to be the guy a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's we're all kind of like, I'd rather not. It's okay. If I have to be, I will type of deal.
Yes.
But there's that respect.
And why that's so important is that there's many times in a year where there's parts of the business where one of us has to kind of step forward and be like, I got it, or I'll do it. And because we're all so reluctant and nobody's thirsty for it, the right guy just steps forward. The right guy goes like, yeah, I'm probably the better one for that. I'll do it.
And the respect and trust is there. Not that we're going to always make the right decisions, although we believe we are, right? But we know also we're going to make mistakes. Yeah. But the respect and the trust is there to where, well, all right, if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. I've lost no respect in my partner.
Well, too, and whatever mistake that is, we all own it as a team.
Totally.
Which is definitely, like, I've experienced the opposite of that in other
finger pointing.
Yeah, it's just like it that's where it all just implodes right away. So that's a huge factor is the fact that we can all, have like really, compelling ideas and really go full blast. But if it doesn't work out, we're not going to just lash out.
Yeah.
I do think that the next 10 years, though, is less on our shoulders and more on the people that we've hired.
Of course.
I think we've done a lot of what we can, the 4 of us. I'd probably include Katrina in that because she's been a part of that since day one. That's something, I mean, that woman doesn't get enough credit for what she's done behind the scenes. I remember
you'd be a mess with her.
Over a year, she was doing work for the company while also working a full-time job somewhere else.
She's a machine.
And has always
brilliant
silently been doing stuff behind the scenes for a very long time. And so I should include her when I say us, the 4 of us, because she's really been a part since the beginning. But I do believe now the next 10 is our staff, is the people that we've brought on.
It has to be.
Like that's the only way this goes to another level. It's
the only way we're going to grow.
And this is, I'm not bullshitting. This is the best team that we've ever had.
Oh yeah,
from top to bottom.
Oh yeah, I'd go to battle with this team all day long.
Yeah, from top to bottom, this staff has got what it takes to take another. Now, whether they do it and they stick with it and they grind, they get the same tenacity that we had and want to win at all costs, can put their ego aside, have that same attitude. Well, that's to be determined. But I do think that they're the ones that are most capable of that. And if we do win next year and the year going forward, like it'll be because of them. So I hope that I get to celebrate with them like I feel like I've celebrated with you guys. Like I feel like we've got to celebrate a lot of what we've done and what we've accomplished and what we've been through.
I'd love to have this conversation in 10 years and talk about how so-and-so started with us as an intern 10 years ago and now look, and it would be great.
My personal drive now on the financial side has more to do with all of them than it does personally.
Yeah.
It's like I now want to go make a bunch of very, very successful young men and women that are working for us. And that will be more rewarding than putting another zero in a bank account for me. Like, that's what I want to do. And so I look forward to that.
100%. And I want just broad scale. I want to really influence a generation of coaches and trainers to just that level, that next level of quality, to where you do things the right way, and you're effective, and you're good, and you're successful. And there's a formula, and there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. There's an ethos. I hope we could spread that. I really do. I hope we could spread that out. I think we can. All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. 30% body fat. For men, this is way too high. This is actually a bit high for women as well. So in today's episode, we're talking about how you can go from 30 to 10. What is 10% body fat? This is when you have a visible six-pack. Can you go from 30 to 10%? Yes, it's possible, but not if you guess along the way. So we're going to talk about how you can do that in today's episode.
Now, there's a huge range, right, of like body types.
Yes.
Some people can run a little bit heavier or a little bit higher body.